After 3 years of marriage, my husband still can't shake his blind devotion to his mother and his habit of spoiling his younger sister. When my mother-in-law mentioned wanting to travel abroad, my husband transferred 200,000 yuan without a second thought. My sister-in-law wanted a designer bag, and after just a little whining, he handed over 100,000 yuan. Our family savings were suddenly wiped out, and I couldn't help but voice my frustration, but he insisted that earning money was meant to be spent on family, telling me not to be stingy. That was until he ignored my warnings and insisted on letting his sister, who had just gotten her license, drive the car. They got into an accident on the road. His sister had minor scrapes, my husband broke both his legs, and I suffered a cervical dislocation. The doctor said the combined cost of surgery for my husband and me would be over 500,000, so my mother-in-law dug out my secret savings and used it to pay for my husband's limb saving surgery. They told me there was no money left, gave up on treatment, and that led to my death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my sister-in-law was about to drive. 01, don't cry, Ran. What your sister-in-law says doesn't count. If you want to drive my car, it's yours. My husband shoved the car keys into his sister's hand. His sister took the keys and shot me a triumphant glance. This scene before me made me realize I had been reborn in my previous life. Since it was hard to get a taxi in the rain, I asked my husband to drive me to work. At that moment, my sister-in-law said she had an appointment for a photo shoot and asked her husband to lend her the car. I thought about how my sister-in-law had only gotten her driver's license a few days ago, so I declined to lend her the car. My husband, however, accused me of being stingy, saying I was even petty with family members. She immediately handed the car keys to her sister-in-law and insisted on going with her to take photos. I couldn't get a taxi, so I had to let my husband take me to the office first. My sister-in-law, however, wouldn't let it go and insisted on driving. I have an important meeting this morning and can't be late. I reluctantly agreed to let my sister-in-law drive, thinking that with my husband in the passenger seat keeping an eye on things, nothing would go wrong. They ended up on a fork in the road, and the sister-in-law, having taken the wrong path, tried to turn back. I swerved sharply, slamming my husband in the passenger seat into the curb, and I was thrown forward in the back seat. My husband broke both his legs. I suffered a cervical dislocation, yet my sister-in-law only had minor scrapes. At that thought, a shiver ran through my entire body. I forced myself to sound calm and said, Ran, it was my fault. Drive it if you want to. I'm going to be late for work, so I have to get going. After I left the house, I stopped by a convenience store and bought a raincoat and a pair of slippers. Seeing the subway station packed to capacity, I quickly grabbed an electric scooter at the intersection. Driving through the rain, navigating the heavy traffic, arrive at the company on time in half an hour to prepare my report. Midway through the meeting, my silenced phone lit up with an incoming call from an unknown number. I checked the time. The accident must have already happened. The purpose of this unknown call was all too clear. I turned the phone face down on the table and resumed the latter half of the meeting too. The meeting concluded perfectly. The unknown caller rang again, and I picked up without a second thought. It was indeed the hospital calling to inform me about my husband and sister-in-law's car accident. I had already cleared my leave with my boss, so I went home first. He moved the gold bars hidden at home to a safe place before heading to the hospital to join the spectacle. In my previous life, my mother-in-law used my gold to quickly raise cash, which is how she managed to cover my husband's surgery expenses. We arrived at the hospital. The scene before me is identical to the one from my past life. The only difference now is that my husband is the only one who's critically injured. Seeing the family arrive, the doctor urgently began explaining the surgical plan. The situation is critical. Both leg bones are crushed and fractured. The limb salvage surgery alone will require at least 300,000. I gazed at my husband, lying there on the hospital bed, fighting for his life. I said helplessly, honey, we don't have the money. Maybe we should just forget about saving the leg. My husband, who had been lying there as if on his deathbed, suddenly bolted upright, agitated, with bloodshot eyes fixed on me. He roared, the doctor said the limb salvage surgery has a high success rate. If we don't have the money, you go to the bank and get a loan, no matter what. We have to save my leg. Look at that ferocious expression on his face. If he weren't so immobile right now, he'd probably leap out of bed and hit me. You think I'm going to pay for the treatment? Keep dreaming. I cursed him silently in my head, but out loud I said, and who's going to pay back a loan? I certainly can't afford it. If you had listened to me and hadn't insisted on letting Ran drive the car, would your leg be in this state? If you want the treatment, let Ran pay for the surgery. At that moment, my husband broke down in tears. You're my wife, you're The closest person to me. When I'm in trouble, you won't help me, you make my sister pay. Are you even human? Only come to me when you need something, ignore me when you don't. They caused this mess themselves. And now they expect me to pay to clean it up. Not a chance. I'd love to help, honey, but I don't have the money. You've given all our savings to your mother and ran. My hands are tied. As soon as she said this, the doctors and nurses who had been glaring at me moments before suddenly understood. If you want to proceed with treatment, you need to raise the funds quickly. We can only wait 8 hours. Any longer risks infection, necrosis, and will compromise the success of limb salvage surgery. After that, amputation will be the only option. With those words, the doctor turned and left. 3. My husband's face, already pale and bloodless, turned ashen upon hearing the doctor's words. He looked at me with a pleading expression and said, "Darling, please save me." On the surface, I looked troubled. Inside, I was elated. You give most of your salary to mom every month, so she must have saved up quite a bit. I tapped twice on my phone to call my mother-in-law. As soon as the call connected, she pressed the phone to her husband's ear. My husband said with a choked voice, "Mom, I've been in a car accident. Please bring 300,000 yuan to the hospital to save me." My mother-in-law replied without hesitation, "Have your wife pay for it. I can't leave right now. Your sister is also injured, and I need to stay with her." Faint sobbing from my sister-in-law could be heard from the other end of the line. Wah, Mom, look at the scrape on my head, will it leave a scar? Then came the sound of her mother-in-law's comforting words. Seeing that, I almost burst out laughing. It turns out my mother-in-law had already arrived at the hospital. She just hadn't come to the intensive care area, taking care of my sister-in-law with minor abrasions in the general ward. Her husband's pale face flushed slightly with anger. I yelled into the phone at my mother-in-law, "My leg is broken. If you don't send the money, they're going to amputate it." "What?" the mother-in-law exclaimed in surprise. "Your sister only had a scrape. How could yours be this bad? Don't lie to your mom." I took over the conversation and said, "Mom, Wenbin is in the intensive care unit on the 5th floor. You need to come up right away." 5 minutes later, the mother-in-law arrived at the intensive care unit. Seeing the crimson stains covering the bandages on her husband's legs, she threw herself against him and burst into uncontrollable sobs. She screamed and blamed me. "Is this how you take care of my son? I told you to stay home and properly look after Wenbin, but you wouldn't listen. Otherwise, how could this have happened to him? This ridiculous logic is so infuriating it's almost laughable." She shot back immediately. "It was your daughter who was driving erratically and slammed Wenbin into the road barrier. His leg got broken because of that. Didn't she tell you when you were taking care of Ran just now?" Then again, it makes sense she wouldn't say anything. After all, she's the one who got her own brother hurt like this. I thought saying that would stop my mother-in-law from throwing dirt at me. Little did I know, I still underestimated her capacity for making a scene. Ran just got her driver's license, and she wants to drive. How can you, as the eldest sister-in-law, not stop her? Do you actually want something bad to happen to both of them, you heartless wretch? I shrugged and said, "Mom, if that's how you want to see it, I can't help it." The mother-in-law went silent in an instant, her hand trembling as she pointed at me. You, Mom, are you hoarse and wanting some hot water?" I quickly turned and filled a cup with hot water, placing it in her hand. "Ouch, that's so hot." The old woman let out a sharp cry and flung the boiling water from her hands. Of all the times, it all spilled right on my husband's leg. "Ah!" The frail husband let out a scream so loud it could have pierced through the ceiling. No need to ring the bell. She just called the nurse over. 04. The doctor ushered my mother-in-law and me out of the hospital room. My mother-in-law stood at the door, listening to the screams coming from inside. Only then did I snap out of it and ask the nurse about my husband's legs. The nurse repeated to my mother-in-law what the doctor had just told me. I found out my husband needs limb salvage surgery on both legs within 8 hours, or they'll have to be amputated. My mother-in-law immediately shouted at me, "What are you still standing there for? Go pay the surgery fee right away." "Mom, you should go pay it. I don't have any money." Before we got married, I saw how devoted my husband was to his mother and how lovingly he cared for his sister. A man who thinks about doing good for his family is unlikely to have a bad character. As a result, after marriage I bought some supplements, and my sister-in-law ate them all without a word. I complained a bit. Her husband immediately lost his temper. "My sister's still a kid, what's wrong with you?" As her sister-in-law, letting her have her way. As for the mother-in-law, it's different. My mom has worked hard all her life. Now it's time for her to enjoy a comfortable life. He secretly used the money we had saved for a house to send his mother on an overseas trip. It wasn't until it was time to put money down for a house that I realized his savings were next to nothing. What's the point of saving a husband like that? Besides, in my past life, even after his limb salvage surgery was successful, he never thought to persuade my mother-in-law to pay for my treatment. How can you have no money? Don't you work for a listed company? My mother-in-law's words snapped me back to the present. I came up with an excuse in 2 seconds. Being in a public company doesn't mean high pay. Besides, I married Wenbin, a high-earning, top-tier guy. How could I even think about working? At my job, I just slack off and earn a few thousand a month. The surgery cost still has to come from you, Mom. After all, Wenbin's salary mostly goes to you. The mother-in-law was so furious she beat her chest and stamped her feet. Such misfortune for our family, always dropping the ball at the most critical moment. The look of resentment in her eyes was as if I were the one who had broken my husband's leg. Just then, the doctor finished tending to my husband's wounds and came out of the hospital room. From inside the room, my husband called out weakly for my mother-in-law and me to come in. The doctor warned us not to spill any boiling water on his wounds again, and only then did he let us enter. My mother-in-law's eyes welled up with tears, putting on a dramatic performance. Son, you married a useless wife. When you're in trouble, she won't contribute a single penny. I've been with my husband for so long I've never told him my real salary. Only saying I take home around 7,000 or 8,000 a month. This lie, in that moment, made my husband place absolutely no hope in me. He cut off his mother's wailing. Mom, cancel your trip abroad for now. I need that 200,000 for my leg surgery. His mother's sobs hitched, and a flicker of guilt crossed her face. That strange expression reminds me of the time I came home from work one day. I saw my mother-in-law dancing in the square with a man in his 40s, wearing a bashful look. I chuckled to myself. So that's what the money was for, not a trip abroad after all. My mother-in-law stayed silent, and my husband, growing impatient, called out again, Mom, did you hear me? Go pay my surgery bill, now. My mother-in-law said weakly, Son, it's not that I won't pay it, it's that the money's already been sent to the international tour group. I can't get it back. I pretended to be frantic, forcing out a couple of tears. Mom, which tour group? Tell me, I'm going to get my money back right now. Wenbin's leg can't be delayed. The mother-in-law's eyes darted around, and after a moment, a mischievous idea formed. It's too late. The tour group's refund process takes 48 hours to be credited. Huifeng, why don't you go to the bank and borrow 300,000 first? I declined, saying, Mom, I'd love to lend it, but I can't. 300,000 is a big loan, it requires collateral, and I don't have anything I can use as security. Oh, that's right, last week, Wenbin transferred a 100,000 to Ranran for a bag. Why don't we ask her to use that money and negotiate with the hospital to pay part of the surgery fee up front? My mother-in-law and my husband both agreed. I immediately called my sister-in-law. 15 minutes later my sister-in-law stumbled over, sobbing, and threw herself against my husband's chest. Brother, look at the cut on my forehead. You need to get the money ready for my scar removal surgery. My husband's usual gentle demeanor toward his sister vanished. He said gruffly, That 100,000 I transferred to you, get it out now and pay for my surgery. If my leg doesn't get treated soon, it's going to be ruined. The moment my sister-in-law heard she was expected to pay, she immediately turned on me. Brother, what are you talking about? I already spent that money on a bag. Shouldn't you be asking your wife for surgery money instead of your little sister? Is that really appropriate? My sister-in-law shot me a glare and continued, Sis, what are you just standing there for? Go pay my brother's surgery bill, now. That entitled tone was exactly like my mother-in-law's. I sat on the stool, calm and unhurried. I live paycheck to paycheck. I don't have the money. If you and your mom won't pay up, then just let your brother lose the leg. My husband's eyes welled up with tears as he looked at me with utter disappointment. Huifeng, after all we've been through as husband and wife, you won't lift a finger to help me. I shook my head, finding the whole thing ridiculous. You know I live paycheck to paycheck. How am I supposed to help? Sell myself. Besides, your own mother and sister, who've taken hundreds of thousands from you, haven't offered a cent. How dare you come at me? At that moment, the doctor pushed the door open and came in to remind them we have 7 hours left. Let's hurry and raise the money. After going out to make a call, my mother-in-law came back and said to me, Huifeng, I've managed to gather 30,000. You should now ask your colleagues and supervisors to chip in the rest. Quickly get the surgery fees for Wenbin paid. Oh, my mother-in-law, she just wouldn't stop making me laugh. Alright then, I'll go ask my colleague right now. Seeing that I agreed, my mother-in-law immediately let out a sigh of relief. Half an hour passed, then an hour. I was still outside on the phone, and my mother-in-law was so anxious she was pacing back and forth. An hour and a half later, I had finished handling work over the phone. Only then did I return to the hospital room with a sigh. Mom, I tried my best. I contacted every single colleague in the entire office. But I only managed to borrow 2,500 yuan. I'm such a failure. I covered my face in shame, but was secretly grinning. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law saw that I had wasted an hour and a half when I only managed to borrow 2,500. They immediately accused me. Sis, you did this on purpose, didn't you? How terrible of a person do you have to be to only get this little money? I went along with it and said, haven't you always told your brother that I'm petty and have low character? So isn't it perfectly normal that my colleague won't lend me money? The 26-year-old sister-in-law stomped her foot and pouted like a kindergarten kid. Bro, look, sister-in-law's picking on me again. My husband is completely drained right now. He doesn't have the energy to defend his sister. All he could think about was saving his legs. Ran, hurry up and sell that bag to pay for my surgery. For the rest, just get a receipt from the doctor. Go now. My sister-in-law lowered her gaze and stammered. The doctor came to press again. There are 5 hours left. Have you raised the money? I immediately pushed my sister-in-law out the door. Ran, the doctors are already pressing us. You need to sell your bag right now and come up with the first 100,000 for your brother's payment. My sister-in-law was put on the spot and couldn't back down. She choked up and said, I lent that bag to a friend. She's out of town right now and can't get back anytime soon. What? About my leg, my husband glared, his hands gripping the sheets tightly. 06. The hospital room fell silent for a moment, and I suggested borrowing money from relatives. My parents divorced and left me, a 7-year-old, in the care of my grandmother. A few years ago, my grandmother passed away, and there's no one left on my side of the family. When borrowing money from relatives, it's naturally the husband's side of the family. Her husband's desperate eyes lit up. Mom, call uncle and little uncle right now and tell them to pull some money together for me. The mother-in-law's mouth twitched, and she steeled herself to make the call. Guanyao, it's your big sister. Wenbin's been in a car accident. We need 300,000 for the surgery. Could you possibly lend? Before the mother-in-law could finish, her younger brother hung up the phone. Maybe the signal was bad, she consoled herself. Then I called my uncle. Bro, Wenbin was in a car accident. He needs 300,000 for surgery. Can you lend me 270,000? It was my eldest aunt on the phone. If you want money, go rob a bank. We don't have any here. Having said that, fearing he'd get stuck, he hung up immediately. I knew exactly how my husband's relatives are, always looking to take advantage. No way they'd actually lend us anything. My husband's eyes grew dim once more. I just want him to see clearly what kind of person that relative is. Someone who insists on helping me despite my objections. The only sound left in the hospital room was the sound of my mother-in-law's wailing. What a disgrace to the family. To think I married such a heartless, useless woman who wouldn't even lift a finger to save her own husband. She couldn't borrow the money, so why is she trying to pin the blame on me again? That's completely turning the tables and blaming the victim. I started wailing right along with her. A parent who isn't kind brings disaster to their children. Using your son's life-saving money to go on an overseas vacation. Father-in-law, get out of your coffin and say something about your wife. How can someone be such a selfish mother? Poor husband, you're so unlucky to have a mother like this, selfish, greedy for pleasure, and utterly heartless. My husband listened to what I said. Her gaze toward her mother-in-law turned cold and hostile. Mom, Huifan's right, get that 200,000 back from the tour group now. If they don't, call the police and make them return it. This is a matter of life and death. I don't believe they dare refuse. I chimed in. Exactly, Mom, we have to try for Wenbin's sake. Who knows, they might agree to refund the money right away. Ran, you should help convince Mom too. Seeing the conversation turn to her again, my sister-in-law grew anxious, fearing they'd ask her for that 100,000. She immediately joined the attack on her mother-in-law. Mom, please help brother. The mother-in-law, cornered and with no other option, left the ward to make a phone call. I excused myself to use the restroom and quietly followed from a distance. I overheard my mother-in-law's conversation. Just as I had suspected, the money was given to old Whiteface and couldn't be recovered. What about my son? Hey, Hey, the grandmother returned to the ward. It just so happened that the doctor reminded us the optimal window for surgery was down to its final hour. 4 pairs of eyes all turned to the grandmother-in-law. She lowered her head in embarrassment, saying nothing. What about my leg if we have no money? My husband cried out in anguish, clutching his hair, still refusing to give up. He shamelessly asked a colleague for a loan, but he's in sales, so he's competitive with his colleagues at the company. They'd be happy if he quit. Ultimately, the 30,000 yuan held by the mother-in-law ended up covering the cost of her husband's leg amputation surgery. 07 Due to insufficient funds, my husband was discharged from the hospital shortly after his surgery. After that, I took care of working to earn money, while my mother-in-law stayed home to look after my husband. My husband, having lost both his legs, has become a completely different person and is now extremely difficult to care for, eating like he had Parkinson's, shaking all over. They don't use the bedpan, just relieve themselves right in the bed and leave it for their mother-in-law to clean up. The mother-in-law knew her son was just venting, and out of guilt, she endured every insult. It wasn't until my mother-in-law used grocery shopping as an excuse to secretly meet her older male friend. The old man complained that his mother-in-law smelled like feces and refused to get close to her. She couldn't hold back her emotions any longer. When I got back, I stopped indulging my husband. My husband soiled the bed and left the stench all day without cleaning it up, waiting for me to come home from work to deal with it. Watching the home surveillance feed, I slacked off at the office until 10 o'clock to take advantage of the overtime taxi subsidy for my ride home. Honey, I'm home. I worked 4 extra hours today and made over 100, every penny saved for your future prosthetic. The husband lying in bed with dead fish eyes. Hearing this, their expression shifted slightly, but they still pressed their lips together and remained silent. I sniffed the air and asked pointedly, "What's that smell?" I lifted the blanket and saw the yellowish stain. Tears welled up and fell. Wah, honey, is this how mom's been taking care of you? My heart aches for you. I stormed into the living room, my face filled with anger, pointing at my mother-in-law and shouting, "Mom, I've been working myself to the bone out there. Also Wenbin could have a better life, and this is how you treat him. He's your own son, you're just heartless." I had an argument with my mother-in-law, rehashing old issues. "Have you not gotten your 200,000 back yet? Is that a tour group or a scam? I'm calling the police right now to ask." Finally, the mother-in-law, feeling guilty, gave in and went inside to clean up her husband's mess. The sheets and bedding were changed for fresh ones, and her body was wiped clean, leaving the old woman so exhausted she could barely straighten her back. The foul smell in the air had dissipated, so I finally went inside, put the leftover takeout from work into a bowl and feed it to my husband. I didn't touch a bite of the dinner the company provided for overtime work. I saved it all to bring home for you. Get well soon, honey. Tears streamed down my husband's cheeks as he choked on his food and sobbed, "Honey, I was wrong all along. I always sided with Mom and Ran, letting you suffer. Can you ever forgive me?" "You're not sorry, you're just scared because you finally realized they can't be relied on." That's what I thought to myself, but out loud, I started making empty promises. "Honey, don't say that, you know me. Now that my grandma's gone, you're my only family. We don't need to talk like this between us." My husband saw my eyes, red from watching videos, and thought I'd been crying with worry over him, filled with remorse. "Darling, I promise you'll never have to endure even the slightest hardship from now on." 08 Some time later, the husband, disgusted by his mother-in-law's cooking, smashed a bowl on her head. The mother-in-law snapped, dropped everything, and stormed out of the house. She hadn't seen her old flame in ages and missed him terribly, so she was dead set on not going back. As it happened, that old scoundrel's household was short a housekeeper, so they took my mother-in-law in. Now, my husband had no one to look after him. My gaze shifted to my sister-in-law. Ran, dear, see how much your brother dotes on you. You said you wanted a bag, and he transferred you 100,000 without batting an eye. With Mom not home and me having to work, I'm entrusting your brother to your care." The sister-in-law immediately objected when she heard he was supposed to take care of her husband. Her expression shifted abruptly, and she refused without hesitation. "He's my older brother, like a father to me, and it's only right that he gives me money to spend. It's you who should be taking care of your husband. Being a wife means that's your duty. Don't try to pass that off on me," I said with a frown. "If I stay home to take care of your brother, who's going to cover the household expenses? You." "Oh, that reminds me. Is your friend done using that bag? Tell her to return it immediately so we can sell it. We'll use the money to hire a caregiver for your brother, and then you won't have to do it. My sister-in-law looked just as guilty as my mother-in-law had. She hurriedly defended herself. She's abroad. It's not that simple to get it back so quickly. I pressed on relentlessly. Then just mail it back. Your brother needs the money. It's a valuable item. What if it gets lost in the mail? How could it? I have a friend in international logistics. I'll handle it. Guaranteed safe delivery. You keep making excuses. Don't tell me you got scammed by your friend. Maybe I should call the police and ask. Afraid I would actually call the police. My sister-in-law reluctantly agreed to take care of my husband. 09. My mother-in-law took care of my husband. She grumbled a bit, but she was attentive enough and never let him go hungry. It's the turn of the infantile sister-in-law, and my husband is really suffering. My sister-in-law can't cook and is saving money to tip mail streamers, so I fed my husband nothing but cheap, prepackaged meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which left him vomiting and suffering from diarrhea. I watched on the security camera as he soiled himself. My sister-in-law frowned in disgust and said, "Brother, it's improper for men and women to have such intimate contact. You should wait for your wife to come home and clean you up." Sitting in the office, I flinched. There's no way I can wipe that off. Immediately sent a message to her husband. I managed to get my boss to approve a business trip for one day. It'll earn me an extra 200. You and Ranran take care at home. I'll be back in a week. My sister-in-law waited until the early hours of the morning, but I never came back. The next day, the smell was unbearable. I took a photo of my husband's miserable state and sent it to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law called me in a fury, her eyes red with urgency. "Where the hell have you been? Leaving my daughter to take care of Wenben all by herself? Is that any way for a wife to act? Get home right now and look after him, or I'll go straight to your office and have a word. Let's see if there's someone at work keeping you away all day and night." Threaten me. That doesn't work on me. Go ahead. I don't want to do this anymore anyway. You can handle the rent and Wenben's follow-up medical bills. Afraid I'd walk away, my mother-in-law fell silent, swallowed her anger, and tried to console me. Instead, I seized the opportunity to escalate the situation. If Ranran hadn't insisted on driving in that downpour, would Wenben have gotten into this mess? She should be the one taking care of him. It's only been a few days and she's already complaining about how hard it is. I'm the one slaving away at the company, working dawn till dusk, running around on business trips. Who do you think I'm doing it for? To pay for Wenben's medical bills. That's who. I'm exhausted. Can't you and Ranran just be a little more considerate? My mother-in-law got an earful from me for a solid half hour. In the end, I had no choice but to step up and go home to take care of my husband. A week later, I returned home. My mother-in-law, with heavy dark circles under her eyes and a weary expression, suggested to me that we hire a nanny. Hui Fong, Mom's just too old to keep going. Please get a nanny for Wenben. Sigh. I let out a long, weary breath. The rent for this apartment is 4,500 yuan a month, and our food expenses are at least 2,000 yuan. Add in Wenben's follow-up medical fees, and my salary just doesn't cover it all. How could we possibly afford a nanny? I continued to pour out my woes. It's my fault. I work myself to the bone and still can't make 10,000 a month. I can't afford next month's rent for this place. We'll have to move to the urban village at the start of the month. My mother-in-law hadn't anticipated that we couldn't hire a nanny. The thought of having to move out of this comfortable neighborhood made her so angry she clutched her chest, gasping for breath. The moment my sister-in-law heard we were moving to a village in the city, she panicked. How could she possibly video call her favorite mail streamer from a place like that? With that thought, she shot up from the couch. She started yelling, "I'm used to living here. I'm not moving. I'm staying right where I am." I replied coolly, "You're welcome to stay if you pay the rent yourself." No matter how much she threw a tantrum, I no longer paid any attention. 10. It's almost the end of the month. I called a moving company and relocated all our belongings, and my husband, into a cramped, dimly lit village in the city. This little house was specially chosen by me. It's by the river, and there are tons of mosquitoes. On the very day we moved in, my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and husband, all three of them unemployed, got bitten head to toe by mosquitoes. My mother-in-law was itching to leave, but I forced her to stay by threatening divorce. My sister-in-law wants to move out too, but her cash cow brother has stopped funding her. She has to spend her money on tipping mail streamers, leaving no extra cash for rent. Mother and daughter could only hide inside the mosquito net, rarely stepping out. In a few days, due to improper care and the damp, dark conditions of the urban village, my husband's wound became infected and he had to be hospitalized. I only transferred 500 yuan to my mother-in-law, Then used a business trip as an excuse to ignore her subsequent messages asking for more money. 500 yuan was only enough to cover cleaning the wound and some anti-inflammatory medication. If he needed to be hospitalized, my mother-in-law would have to pay for it herself. The doctor looked at my husband's severely infected wound, a result of improper care. He couldn't help but give my mother-in-law a piece of his mind and advised her to let my husband stay in the hospital for observation for a few days. My mother-in-law and husband tearfully complained that I refused to give them money, but I sent my husband a photo of myself eating steamed buns with pickled vegetables. Caption: if I skip a bite, my husband gets one step closer to recovery. After the performance, I took out the braised pork and ate it all with steamed buns. So delicious. My husband, frail and seated in his wheelchair, glared at his mother with venom in his eyes. I cursed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law up and down in my head. It's rather ironic that I, the one who only talks the talk but never lifts a finger, ended up looking like the good guy. In my husband's eyes. 11 After the injection, my mother-in-law took my husband home. Throughout the journey, my husband didn't cooperate, lying limp and letting his mother-in-law do all the work. When she got home, my mother-in-law was drenched in sweat and had nearly thrown her back out. My heart ached a little less for my husband, and I became even more careless in attending to him. My husband wanted some water, but no matter how many times he called for his mother, she never showed up. The frustrated mother-in-law has already gone out to meet her old lover in secret, calling out to her sister-in-law. She's just holding her phone, swiping through sports cars to send to a mail streamer. My husband was so parched that thick, dead skin formed on his lips. He didn't get a single sip of water until I came home at 10 in the evening. Seeing him in that pitiful state, I pinched my thigh hard to keep from laughing. I put on a show and started crying. Honey, is this how Mom and Ran have been taking care of you at home? They won't even give you water to avoid helping you to the bathroom. I'm not going to work tomorrow. I'll take leave and look after you myself. I refuse to believe that caring for a patient is that difficult. A flicker of hope flashed in her husband's desperate eyes. The next day, I carefully washed my husband all over several times and cooked him his favorite tender steak. I only took care of him for one day, and he was moved to tears. My sister-in-law caught a whiff of the delicious aroma and came over, eager for a taste. My husband hurled a bowl straight at my sister-in-law's face. You troublemaker, get out of my sight. The sister-in-law's forehead was bleeding from the impact, and she rushed forward to claw at her husband. I grabbed the table right away to keep my steak from falling. Since you're not eating it, I guess I'll have to finish it myself. The brother and sister tumbled on the ground, exchanging blows in a fierce struggle. The sister-in-law scratched her brother-in-law's face, leaving several bloody marks, and he retaliated by pulling her hair fiercely. Saw my husband get beaten up quite a bit. I finally snapped and slapped my sister-in-law a few times. How dare you lay a hand on my husband? You've gone too far. In the end, my sister-in-law, one hand pressed to her forehead and the other covering her swollen, red cheek, went to the hospital in tears. She can't afford to get disfigured, otherwise, how would she have the nerve to video chat with the mail streamer? I tidied up the mess in the room at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right on time, pushed her husband out to catch his mother-in-law and that old white-faced man on a date. When my husband saw his mother holding hands with that gigolo, his face instantly darkened like a storm cloud. Isn't that Mom? Let's go say hello. I deliberately pushed my husband over there. Coincidentally, our mother-in-law, who had her back turned to us, just happened to bring up the matter of the 200,000. I've given you over 300,000 in total. How can you still want more? Old Whiteface coaxed patiently. Ho-hot, if we don't keep up with the mortgage payments on that house, we're in real trouble. I'm not well enough to work, and you're my wife. If you won't help me, who will? The old white-faced man pinched his mother-in-law's buttock. He pulled her into his arms, and the two grew intimate, oblivious to the world around them. Husband heard their conversation and immediately erupted in rage. Jiao Ho-hot, did you give my surgery money to this bastard? How could you do this to me? I pushed my husband in front of his mother. The mother and son were locked in a fierce argument. Finally, the mother-in-law threw caution to the wind, and her words grew harsher with each sentence. I'm your mom, your filial money. I'll spend it however I want. It's been over a year since your dad passed away. What's wrong with me moving on? Go have your wife take care of you. I don't owe you anything. Then don't call me your mother anymore. Just pretend I'm dead. Her husband was so angry his eyes were bloodshot, but he couldn't get up to fight the old white-faced man and his wife, who had spent his leg saving money. I could only watch as my mother-in-law and old white-face walked away. 12 I pushed my silent husband home, deliberately handing the phone to her husband. Honey, don't be upset. Why don't you scroll through your phone for a bit to unwind? I'm here for you, no matter what. My husband took the phone and started playing with it absent-mindedly 2 minutes later, just as I had expected. My husband came across a live stream where a male host was connected with my sister-in-law. Thank you to the lovely and kind-hearted lady for supporting little Weiwei, my sister-in-law said generously. Don't be polite, I earn money, and who else should I spend it on if not you? Her husband froze for a second at the familiar sound. With trembling hands, she immediately tapped the avatar on the live call interface. I recognized my sister-in-law from the photo on her profile. Even through 10 layers of beauty filters, she glanced back at the value of the gifts her sister-in-law had sent, 160,000 RMB. Instantly, his hair stood on end with rage, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed unconscious. Oh my god, he can't die on my watch. I rushed to hail a cab and took him to the hospital. On the way, I called my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Mom, you made Wenbin faint. Get to the hospital now. Ran, your brother fainted from anger. Come to the hospital now. My sister-in-law is upset because my husband and I scolded her this morning, and she refuses to come. When my mother-in-law rushed to the hospital, she immediately started blaming me for not taking good care of her son. I let out a sneer, mocking her. Mom, listen to yourself. If Wenbin hadn't caught you sneaking around with your lover, would he even be in the hospital? That poor guy is cursed with a mother and sister like you. One got his leg broken, and the other blew through the money for his limb-saving surgery. You, my mother-in-law sputtered, clutching her chest and pointing a trembling finger at me, breathless with rage. Just then, the surgery light went out. The doctor emerged and delivered the news. The infection was too severe. I'm sorry for your loss. Next, my husband's body, covered with a white sheet, was wheeled out. With a heavy thud, my mother-in-law collapsed backward, hitting the floor. I completed the necessary procedures at the hospital. With a phone call, the crematorium staff were summoned to take my husband's body away. I've grown so weary of this act, and now I'm finally free of it. 13. The old woman returned to Old Paleface home, heartbroken, but having lost her usefulness, she was driven out by Old Paleface in less than a week. You're broke, why didn't you say so sooner? You've wasted my damn time. Take a look in the mirror. If I'm not after your money, do you think I'm after that old man stench of yours? Idiot, don't come looking for me again. The old woman returned to her rented room in the urban village, sobbing and sniffling. She discovered I had already given up the lease on the apartment. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law are like daughter vines, living off their husband. Now that her husband is gone, she wants to latch onto me and suck me dry. When I didn't answer the phone, my mother-in-law sent a text message. Where are you? Wenbin is gone. So you have less burden now. Go back to the apartment in the community. This is your responsibility. You have to take it on. I'm at the urban village. When are you picking me up? I sent a message. Output only. Translation, matching, content_type, format. Wenbin is gone, and so is my reason for living. I've become a monk. Please don't think of me or search for me. I then blocked my mother-in-law and hastily moved to the city where my new job was located. In disbelief, my mother-in-law rushed to my former workplace to look for me. When she found out I had really quit, her world came crashing down. My sister-in-law came back after a failed meetup with a male streamer, learned what happened, and started relentlessly cursing me for being irresponsible. She may have vented her anger, but now she's homeless and penniless. The gnawing hunger is something she and her mother-in-law have to endure. What's more, her sister-in-law racked up a lot of online debt trying to win over that male streamer. Her sister-in-law is counting on their mother to bail her out, as she's the only daughter left. So, I wanted to take that old scoundrel to court and make him pay back the money, but that old scoundrel had an ulterior motive from the very beginning. The money he got from my mother-in-law was all in cash, making it very difficult to recover. I slunk out of the free legal advice office, utterly dejected. The mother-in-law had no choice but to drag her daughter along and impose themselves on the old sugar daddy. But after staying at his place for just a few days, the daughter ended up getting involved with the old man. Furious, the mother-in-law got into a physical fight with her daughter. The mother-daughter bond was shattered, and their lives became quite the spectacle. I didn't follow up on what happened after that because I knew that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, being such incapable adults who couldn't support themselves, were headed for a bad end. The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more exciting. After returning from my trials, I found the sect had been turned upside down. My younger sister, whom I had raised since childhood, died, killed by a young girl the master had just brought back. Her senior and junior brothers looked at her with utter disgust, saying she got what she deserved, a disgrace to the righteous path. But clearly, they used to dote on the junior sister just as much before later. I held my sword and calmly severed their tendons, crushed their bones, and watched coldly as they writhed in the mud, reduced to broken men at the peak of their terror. I lowered my gaze and asked, "And this is what you call a righteous sect? Are you even worthy?" The day I returned to the sect, the moment I stepped through the mountain gate, a few outer disciples saw me and their faces turned as if they'd seen a ghost. I furrowed my brow and lowered my gaze to examine my outfit in a blue robe with sword sleeves, her black hair tied high at the back, a sword, my soul-bound blade, Qing Shuang, sheathed at her waist. "Looks fine." Then why did they make that expression? I couldn't figure it out for a moment, but I didn't dwell on it, and slowly made my way toward the main hall. "My name is Meng Shi, the senior disciple of Qingyun sect. 3 months ago, I descended the mountain alone to seek a breakthrough. Now that I've returned from my cultivation journey, I should naturally report back to my master first." But the grand hall was empty of the master's presence, which puzzled me. At this hour, he would usually be here attending to the sect's affairs. "Senior sister," a delighted young voice reached my ears. "You're back." I turned to look. A tall figure hurried into the room through the doorway. The young man had a refined, handsome face, his peach blossom eyes sparkling with warmth, gazing at me with a gentle, amused smile. It was none other than junior brother Pei Chu. I lowered my gaze and replied softly, "Yes, I came to see master, but it seems he isn't here." "Ah," Pei Chu thought for a moment, "at this hour? I imagine our master would be in his own quarters." "Naturally, you've come here for nothing." Though I was puzzled, I didn't dwell on it. I just wanted to finish reporting the situation quickly so I could go find my junior sister. I brought her some of her favorite peach blossom cakes. "In that case, I'll go find him." With that, I gave him a slight nod and turned to leave. Pei Chu caught up with me, meeting my puzzled gaze. He said with a grin, "I'll go with you. You've only just returned, senior sister. And you're already rushing off to see the master. You haven't even asked how your junior brother is doing." A hint of complaint tinged Pei Chu's voice. "Aside from my junior female classmate, I also have a bit of patience for this youngest junior male classmate of mine." A faint smile touched my cold face as I reached into the mustard seed pouch and pulled out a folding fan, handing it to him. "I happened to run into it while out, so I brought it back for you. This is a top-grade magical artifact. You can use it for self-defense in times of danger." A delighted smile spread across Pei Chu's face as she admired the folding fan, unable to put it down. "Thank you, senior sister." I gave a hum of acknowledgement and handed over an exquisite sword tassel. "This is for eldest senior brother. Could you take it to him on your way back?" Pei Chu took it, her gaze fixed expectantly on my hand. "And what's that?" My movements paused for a moment before I calmly put the item away. "That's peach blossom cake I specifically brought for junior sister. She begged me for it endlessly before I left the mountain. Don't trouble yourself with this, I'll deliver it to our junior sister myself later." "Oh, that reminds me, how has our junior sister's swordsmanship been progressing while I've been away?" Something in those words must have struck a nerve, for Pei Chu's face instantly drained of all color. I looked at him, puzzled. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Pei Chu's lips parted, his voice coming out hoarse. "Senior sister." "About little senior sister, a few seconds later, Pei Chu closed his eyes, his expression one of grim resolve. "Senior sister, little senior sister Susu, she's gone." Thud, the peach blossom cake fell to the ground and shattered into several pieces. My mind suddenly felt like it was boiling over, and my legs nearly gave way beneath me. She's dead." 3. Pei Chu took me to the forbidden grounds behind the mountain. I saw my junior sister lying quietly in the ice coffin there. Her face was deathly pale, and a gaping hole had been torn through her lower abdomen. I don't know how much injustice she must have endured. I took a step forward, feeling as if each footfall was an immense effort. Even time itself seemed to stretch into an unbearable crawl. Pei Chu, following behind me, offered a hollow attempt at comfort. "Senior sister, I know you're hurting, but, shoo." I raised a finger to my lips, lowering my gaze to study Susu's lifeless face with solemn intensity. "Su doesn't like being disturbed when she's asleep. You woke her up." Pei Chu fell silent, but his gaze remained unsettled and questioning. I could tell he was puzzled by my lack of reaction. It's as if the lifeless figure lying here isn't the junior sister I've cherished and protected all this time. After all, who in the entire Qingyun sect doesn't know I raised Susu with my own hands, watching her grow day by day, for Susu was found and taken in by our master when she was 6 years old. Seeing her natural talent and that she was all alone, he simply brought her back to the Qingyun sect. My master said to me, "Meng Shi, from now on, she is your junior sister." you must take on the responsibility of being her senior sister and guide her in her cultivation. I responded indifferently. Yes, I was born with an aloof temperament. Every day, I do nothing but cultivate my spirit and study swordsmanship. From that day on, a little shadow began to follow me everywhere. When I meditated, she would curl up and sleep by my side. When I practiced my sword forms, she would sit on a stone bench, stuffing her mouth with peach blossom cakes and smiling at me with a wink. After I broke through my cultivation realm, she was happier than anyone else, hugging 2 jars of peach blossom wine at midnight and saying she wanted to celebrate for me. I frowned and snatched the wine jar from her hand. Nonsense, you're still young, how can you drink? Susu pouted, then, when I wasn't looking, grabbed another jar and took a couple of loud gulps. Then, with her big, sparkling eyes, she blinked and held the wine jar up to me. Senior sister, come on, give it a sniff. I lowered my head and took a gentle sniff, and a rich, fruity aroma washed over me. Seeing that I remained silent, she planted her hands on her hips triumphantly. I knew you wouldn't let me drink, senior sister. That's why I swapped it for fruit wine before I came. So, how about that? Pretty clever. I was speechless. Though the fruit wine was low in alcohol, she was simply too young. After drinking less than a third of it, she grew drowsy and laid her head on my lap, mumbling indistinctly, hee. I love my senior sister the most. She's the best senior sister in the whole world. The best senior sister. I thought back carefully. Though I'd been a disciple of Qingyun sect for several years now, my emotional detachment has kept me isolated, always wandering alone. The other disciples always kept me at a respectful distance. I had always thought I wasn't very likable. This was the first time someone had been so close to me, thinking I was good. Looking at her little face, flushed from sleep, I felt a sudden softness in my heart. The next morning, she woke up full of energy and headed to the back hill to catch the spirit fish raised by the elder. At noon, he returned looking like a drowned rat, cradling a plump spirit fish in his arms, and shouted loudly, senior sister, let's have grilled fish today. Behind her trailed the elder, one shoe having fallen off in the chase. The elder was so furious he was practically steaming. Mengshi, just look at the fine little sister you've raised. Other passing disciples gathered to watch the commotion, all placing bets. When do you think the head senior sister will finally throw little Sue out? My money's on 2 months, tops, 1 month. Upon hearing those words, Susu was so furious she wanted to slap their faces with her fish tail. I merely cast them a cool glance, and the crowd instantly fell silent, as quiet as cicadas in winter. Yet, no one could have ever anticipated this period of care ended up lasting nearly a decade. 5. Emerging from the forbidden grounds, I held Susu securely in my arms, listening with a blank expression as Pei Chu told me about what had happened during the 3 months I was away. It turned out that shortly after I left the mountain, my master brought back a girl named Lin Yao from outside. The master said he had a destined connection with Lin Yao, and thus took her on as his final disciple. As the master's final disciple, it's clear how highly he regards her. Not long after Lin Yao joined the sect, she burst into tears, accusing Susu of targeting her. She said that while the disciples were practicing swordplay, Susu pierced her shoulder with a single strike. The robe the master had sent out suddenly appeared in Susu's room. Even during the trial in the secret realm, Lin Yao barely escaped from the jaws of a demonic beast, only to return to the sect and accuse Susu of pushing her into danger. The master flew into a rage and ordered Susu to be confined in the icy cave on the back mountain to reflect on her mistakes. Little did Lin Yao expect that when she went to visit her that evening, she would be struck with a sword and have her dantian destroyed. Hearing this, I cut Pei Chu off. Such a clumsy attempt at framing someone. Don't tell me not a single one of you could see through it. Pei Chu's voice caught slightly. Senior sister, I know you and little senior sister are close, but this is truly what everyone witnessed. You can't just because. I didn't bother listening to his nonsense, just let out a soft oh, and said, so everyone's blind, huh? Pei Chu. I lifted Susu's body slightly, brushing a hand through her hair, my expression cold. What's going on with Susu's dantian? Where's her golden elixir? Although Susu is a bit of a slacker, I've been pushing her all these years, so her cultivation is actually quite solid. She formed her golden core quite early, but now, the golden core within this body has vanished without a trace. A preposterous suspicion began to form in my mind. Pei Chu said in a tone that brooked no argument, she destroyed junior sister Lin Yao's dantian. Naturally, the master had to give her what she deserved. The junior senior sister deserved her punishment. Her core formation energy should naturally be given to senior sister Lin Yao as compensation. Hearing those words, I lost my temper and kicked him dozens of meters away. I had just broken through, and that kick came completely out of nowhere, using 70% of my strength. I kicked him so hard he couldn't get up for a while. Senior sister, why would you? Oh, two voices sounded at once. I ignored Pei Chu, who lay on the ground with a look of disbelief, and narrowed my eyes, staring behind him. I hadn't even had the chance to go after the one responsible, and she walked right into it. 6. Linya rushed over in a hurry, intending to help Pei Chu up from the ground. As she passed by me, she suddenly halted and reached out to shove me. Ha, is that all she's got? Without changing my expression, I deftly pivoted, holding Susu in my arms. She couldn't control her momentum and crashed hard to the ground, staring at me in shock. Who do you think you are? How dare you act so recklessly in the Qingyun sect? I looked down at her. You're Lin Yao. A young girl lies on the ground, her almond eyes and rosy cheeks framing a delicate, beautiful face, her slender form swaying like a willow in the breeze, evoking an instant pang of pity. No wonder people still believe her, despite how crude her tactics are. How could such a delicate, innocent girl like Susu, who's never seen the cruelty of human nature, possibly be her match? Lin Yao pushed herself up from the ground, trying to project an air of authority. Shouldn't you introduce yourself before asking for someone else's name? My name. The corner of my mouth twitched, my tone turning sharp. You think you're worthy of knowing, you? Lin Yao snapped, her face contorted with fury as she glared at me with venom. She helped Pei Chu to his feet, lifting her chin with haughty pride. I'm the most favored little sister in Qingyun sect. If you offend me, my master and the others won't let you off. Let me tell you, the last person who crossed me had their golden core carved out. Smack. My response was a slap straight to her face, sending her flying back a good 10 meters. Pei Chu, still unsteady on his own feet, stumbled over to help her up, and the two nearly toppled over together. Lin Yao lay sprawled on the ground, clutching her badly swollen cheek, her eyes blazing with fury. How dare you hit my face? Do you think I'd stop at just slapping her face? When our master brought this fool back, did he not warn her? Did she not know that besides being aloof, I also hold a grudge? I paid no mind to her ridiculous, clownish display. With one arm holding Susu, my other hand slowly moved to my waist. Clang, the frost blade sang from its sheath, sensing my fury, and leveled its point at Lin Yao. A belated fear crept over her, and she shrank back, hiding behind Pei Chu. Little brother, save me. Pei Chu's gaze fell on me like a blade, not a trace of his earlier docility in sight. He pointed at me angrily. Senior sister, you've gone too far this time, just for a traitor who harmed our fellow disciples. Ah. Before he could finish speaking, I grabbed his throat, his eyes wide with terror. I lowered my gaze, my tone icy. If I hear that again, you'll never speak a word for the rest of your life. Sheltered behind him, Lin Yao thought I hadn't noticed her and tried to slip away unnoticed, but a sword aura I sent flying struck her leg, sending her tumbling to the ground in a heap. I tossed Pei Chu aside and strode toward her, sword in hand. Now, she truly understood fear. I wasn't in the mood to waste words with her. I slashed her escape talisman with a single strike, severing her hand tendons in the process. Oh, it hurts so much. Lin Yao let out a heart-wrenching scream and began writhing on the ground. Pei Chu scrambled over in a panic. Little junior sister, are you all right? I'll go get the master right away. I didn't stop him. He would find out sooner or later anyway. Better to settle it all at once. Lin Yao's screams were agonizing, but I merely watched her quietly, a faint smile on my lips. Does it hurt? I imagine my junior sister suffered 100 times worse than this. The mere memory of Susu's pallid face and her body, robbed of its golden core, makes me want to run my sword through the person before me. But no, she must endure 10, even 100 times more pain than Susu. Only then would it be fair. 7. Lin Yao, terrified that I might actually kill her, wailed and crawled on the ground. I held Susu's body close as I followed behind, cutting into her again and again with my sword. Not fatal, but painful enough. Pei Chu was scared by me and cowered to the side, too afraid to come over. Looking at Susu's pale little face, I whispered softly, Susu, do you see? Senior sister will make her suffer 100 times more than you. Susu didn't speak, her body was cold, so of course she couldn't answer me. Lin Yao was a sobbing, tear-streaked mess. As her golden core circulated, she gathered spiritual energy in a desperate attempt to shield herself. My gaze turned icy. Lin Yao, I said, my voice cold. How does my junior sister's golden core feel inside you? Comfortable, based on what she had just said, coupled with Pei Chu's earlier mention of her destroyed core, It wasn't hard for me to piece it together, the golden core currently residing within her. It belonged to Su. Lin Yao shivered slightly but still held her ground. So what if it is? She ruined my dantian. She should pay with her own. I swung my blade, drawing a line of blood across her lips. The anger I had suppressed came surging back. We haven't even retrieved Susu's body yet. No point wasting time here, but letting Lin Yao die like this would be far too merciful. She must also taste the agony of having her golden core carved out while still alive. My gaze sharpened, and I drove my spirit sword straight toward her abdomen. Suddenly, an angry shout rang in my ears. Mengshi, how dare you? Oh, it's the master coming. I didn't even look up, shifting from 5 parts of my strength to 7, moving with lightning speed. With a sickening thwump, the blade pierced home. Lin Yao's eyes widened for an instant before her body went limp, collapsing to the ground. Without the slightest hesitation, I pulled out a glowing golden elixir from her dantian. This is Susu's own golden elixir. Placing it on Lin Yao would make her feel sick. A surge of immense spiritual power, laced with my master's towering rage, came hurtling toward me from behind. Wretched disciple, kneel. 8. Clutching Susu tightly to my chest, I flung the frostfall sword into the air and leapt aside, evading the attack from behind. A swing and a miss. I looked down at the newcomer, a faint smirk playing at the corner of my lips. Looks like Pei Chushiwei has gotten smarter. There are quite a few people swaying now. Master, senior brother, and second junior brother have all arrived. One by one, they gathered around Lin Yao, who lay limp on the ground, their faces filled with concern. My master's face was as cold as ice as he looked up at me. Mengshi, how dare you harm your junior sister behind my back? Senior brother Wei Xing looked utterly disappointed. Junior sister Meng, how could you be so ruthless? Second junior brother Su Wen, hot-tempered as ever, drew his sword and pointed it at me. Hand over the little sister's golden elixir now, or I won't be so kind. Oh, how absurd. They murdered their own sect brother, using that flimsy excuse to kill Susu, and now they think they can manipulate me. What a shame. Let them down. My gaze swept over those once familiar faces, followed by a mocking laugh. I've only ever had Susu as my junior sister, and the golden elixir I retrieved was hers. How can you speak of returning it? The master was furious. You wretched disciple, have you forgotten the sect's rules? After a little training outside, how dare you defy your master? That person by your side is nothing but a disgrace to our sect, a traitor who has harmed her own fellow disciples. Do you really intend to turn against the entire sect for her sake? He was right about one thing. How could I possibly care about a place full of stupid, brainless fools? Just then, Lin Yao, who had previously fainted from pain, slowly regained consciousness. The moment she saw her master, she threw herself into his arms, whimpering, Master, I'm in so much pain, everywhere hurts. Master, you must avenge me. Hearing those words, a flicker of concern passed through the master's eyes, and he quickly channeled spiritual energy to heal her wounds. Unfortunately, her dantian was already damaged, and now I've just shattered her golden core. No amount of spiritual power now would be anything but a drop in the ocean. The three exchanged a glance, and Wei Xing immediately charged at me with his sword drawn. My apologies, junior sister Meng, but Yaoer needs this golden core, I said calmly. Who did this golden core originally belong to? Are you truly unaware? His movement faltered for a moment, but upon hearing Lin Yao's pleading voice, his resolve quickly hardened again. The departed are gone. What matters now are those still with us. Junior sister Meng, hand over the golden core. I finally let out a hearty laugh. What a fine sentiment. The departed are gone, and those still with us indeed. With a twist of my wrist, I flicked the long sword upward. A single strike shattered his ribs. Wei Xing spat out a mouthful of blood, staring at me in shock. You, I leaned down to look at him, a wicked smile curling at my lips. All these years, calling you senior brother. Did you really start to believe your cultivation surpassed mine? In Qingyun sect, the top disciple has always been the one with the highest cultivation level. Back then, Wei Xing was always overshadowed by me, but since I never cared for such hollow titles, people gradually came to call him senior brother instead. Who would have thought that calling him that would actually boost his confidence a bit? Others also glanced over, but the master, focused on comforting Lin Yao, hadn't noticed my move. Just thought Wei Xing was too useless. He rose to his feet, and the power of his Huashan cultivation stage descended like a tidal wave, forcing the nearby disciples of lower cultivation to collapse to the ground in agony for the sake of personal gain, disregarding the lives of ordinary disciples. This was the first time I truly realized. So this is the true nature of my revered master, utterly despicable. The master's voice was cold. Mengshi, hand over the golden core, and I'll spare your life. 9. How absurd. For the sake of Lin Yao, who had only joined the sect a few months ago, they first caused Susu's death, and now they dare to move against me. Unfortunately for them, they miscalculated. My esteemed master is merely at the late stage of the deity transformation realm. My aura sharpened, the cultivation base I had been suppressing was instantly unleashed, the frostfall sword hummed, steadfastly resisting my master's oppressive might. He halted in his tracks, a flicker of emotion finally stirring in his eyes. You've already reached the deification stage. What? Lin Yao, who had been writhing in agony, contorted her face even further. Her once beautiful features now twisted like a demon's. Master, please give me her spiritual root. I don't want that useless golden core anymore. Ah. Before she could finish her sentence, I casually swatted her away, sending her flying like a kite with its string cut. I said coldly, if I hear you insult my junior sister one more time, I'll cut out your tongue and feed it to the beasts on the back mountain. Lin Yao bit her lip hard, pleading for help from those around her. Senior brother. Master, look at her. Unfortunately, the people she was calling out to were staring at me in shock. You should know, even my master is only at the late stage of cultivating the divine, while I, at just 20 years old, have already broken through to the early stage. There is no other genius like him in the entire cultivation world. Wei Xing's gaze was deep and shadowed, his head bowed as if lost in thought. My master frowned, choosing to press me with force. Even if you've broken through to the nascent soul stage, you are still a disciple of our Qingyun sect. Violating the sect's rules demands punishment. I swept my hand to deflect his strike, my movement steady and controlled. Susu remained safe within my barrier, untouched by the chaos. I lifted my gaze, my eyes cold and distant. Though your cultivation surpasses mine by a margin, if I were to fight with my life on the line, Lin Yao would surely fall by my hand. If you don't believe me, feel free to try it for yourself. The clash between two nascent soul cultivators would unleash shockwaves powerful enough to engulf all the disciples present, Lin Yao included. The master frowned in silence, while Lin Yao and the other three paled visibly. They were genuinely frightened. Finally, the master gave me a cold glance. Let this matter rest for today. No one is to speak of it again. Su Wen wasn't convinced, but he was glared back into silence by his master and could only glare at me in frustration. Pei Chu opened his mouth. Senior sister, you. I cut him off coldly. Silence. I have no such junior brother. Back in the day, he was the youngest, and Susu loved nothing more than running wild with him all over the sect. Even when they got into trouble, it was always Susu who took the blame for him. And now, he has the nerve to say, with his own mouth, that all of this was Susu's own doing. The only reason I didn't kill him on the spot was that dealing with Lin Yao was more important than dealing with him. The master is protecting her. There's no taking her life today, and it's more important to take care of Susu's body first. I suppressed the rising tide of blood in my throat and clenched my fingers tightly around the Qingxuang sword. After all, I've only just made my breakthrough. I can't compare to Master's decades of profound cultivation. I was just forcing myself earlier, only to intimidate those who harbored ill intentions. But it's fine. Under the same roof, I'll find my chance. Lin Yao, she will die. 10. Holding Susu, I turned and walked away. Pei Chu hesitated, calling out to me, Senior sister. I turned around, and a flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes. Before he could speak again, I raised my hand, summoned the fan from his grasp, and snapped it cleanly in two. The sword tassel I never got to give was consumed by a single burst of spiritual flame. Pei Chu exclaimed in astonishment, Senior sister. That was a gift you gave to me and eldest brother. Oh, I said nonchalantly, I don't feel like giving it now. It just makes me sick. A single sentence turned everyone's faces grim. As I left, I faintly heard Lin Yao shouting and demanding my spiritual root. She dares to think it, but would the master dare to agree? I'm afraid he's too busy being wary of me right now. I brought Susu back to my place, where the girl lay quietly on the bed, utterly still and silent. I held her cold hands and sat silently by the bedside throughout the long night. The next day, as the morning sun rose, I reached out my hand, and its light filtered through my fingers into the room. I placed Susu's body within a frost-based magical artifact to preserve it from decay. The little girl is always so fond of beauty, so of course I must take good care of her body. I've stored her golden elixir in the Jieji space. Lin Yao really has no mercy for herself. I checked yesterday, her dantian is indeed damaged. And now she's lost Susu's golden core as well. There's no guarantee those idiots won't keep eyeing the golden core cultivation again. I headed toward the back mountain. Susu used to love feeding a long-eared rabbit there. Now that she's gone, I should go see that spirit beast on her behalf. As soon as I reached the back of the mountain, I caught a faint, elusive scent of blood in the air. The further I walked, the stronger and more distinctive became my furrowed my brow, pushing my speed to the absolute limit. By the time I saw the scene before me, the killing intent in my eyes had nearly solidified into substance. Lin Yao and Su Wen sat together, a pile of rabbit fur beside them as Su Wen roasted meat for her. She even remarked disdainfully, "This beast's fur will make a fine cloak for me. I suppose it died for a worthy cause." Thud, the frostblade sword brutally pierced through Lin Yao's body, the immense force driving her into the trunk of a tree. "Little sister." Only then did Su Wen realize what was happening, and he charged at me with a furious roar. His eyes flashed with fury, as if I'd dug up his family's ancestral graves. "Mengshi, I'm done with you." I gave him a cold stare, summoned Frostblade back to my hand, and with a single strike, sent him flying. Without support, Lin Yao tumbled to the ground in a clumsy heap, a gushing blood hole torn through her chest. "Master, senior brother, second senior brother, little senior brother, help." 11 A long string of blood droplets dripped from the tip of the sword as I stepped toward her, my gaze cold. "Lin Yao, the matter of you killing my junior sister is not settled. And now you come rushing to your own death." The corners of my lips curved into a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Do you truly believe that with our master's protection, I cannot touch you?" Lin Yao curled up on the ground, her gaze still venomous. "Just you wait, master and the others will be here soon. If you dare kill me, master and our senior brothers will never let you get away with it." Su Wen also shouted loudly, "That's right, Mengshi. You're far too arrogant, daring to lay a hand on us. You're finished." "Humph." I planted my foot on Lin Yao's chest and ground it twice, then grabbed her hair and said casually, "Then I'll be waiting. But before that," my gaze darkened, "sending you off first would be just as good." My spiritual energy surged suddenly, and without hesitation, I thrusted toward her chest. Lin Yao's eyes widened in terror, and she and Su Wen both let out piercing screams of awe, before collapsing unconscious. A flicker of grim satisfaction crossed my eyes, but in the next instant, a layer of white light materialized around Lin Yao. The frostblade sword struck it, producing a clear, ringing sound, yet she remained completely unharmed. I frowned, stubbornly channeling more spiritual power, but the sword's tip still couldn't advance another half step. The blinding white light intensified. After a tense moment of stalemate, the Qing frost sword in my hand let out a mournful cry before a single strike cleanly snapped it in two. With my bonded sword destroyed, I naturally suffered backlash. A trickle of vivid crimson blood escaped the corner of my lips. Why? I couldn't make sense of it. Why would someone like Lin Yao, of all people, be protected by the aura of the Tao? Back then, I had once grasped a fragment of the heavenly law by chance, so naturally, I wouldn't feel it was wrong. Though it was only a trace of energy on Lin Yao, it would keep her safe for the rest of her life. Yet my innocent and kind-hearted junior sister could only die with bitter resentment. The heavens are unjust. My eyes were bloodshot as I gripped Lin Yao's neck, watching her face slowly turn red from suffocation. At last, just as she was about to draw her final breath, the white light behind her could hold back no longer. A soft sigh drifted through the air. "Mengshi, let go." 12 In a dizzying swirl, I felt as though I was being pulled into a void. The silence around was so profound it felt unnerving. I stood where I was, my voice cold. "Since you've already intervened to stop me, why hide and refuse to show yourself?" "Good." I deliberately put on a show of trying to kill Lin Yao just now, all to force out whatever's been protecting her from the shadows. So what if it carries the aura of the heavenly Tao? Anything that exists has a way to be dealt with. I'm curious to see what's so special about Lin Yao that it would make the heavenly Tao itself intervene on her behalf. A sphere of white light suddenly flared into existence before me. I raised an eyebrow. "And what might you be?" The white orb pulsed, declaring itself to be the avatar of this minor world's heavenly Tao. Its tone was haughty. "Mengshi, you cannot touch Lin Yao," I said with a blank expression. "Oh." Seeing I didn't believe it, it went on talking to itself. "From its words, I learned that Lin Yao is the destined heroine of this world, born under the protection of heaven's will, living a smooth and fortunate life until she grew up and joined our Qingyun sect. My master, my senior and junior brothers, all dote on her to the core. Anyone who offends her will meet a miserable end, suffering endless torment, all just to win a smile from Lin Yao." And my junior sister, Susu, was the so-called villainess, unable to bear seeing Lin Yao steal the affection meant for her. She schemed to shatter Lin Yao's dantian. By the time Wei Xing and the others arrived, Su Wen had already struck, his palm shattering Susu's heart meridian, and then Wei Xing pinned her to the ground with a single thrust of his sword, Pei Chu suggested that since Lin Yao's dantian was ruined, they might as well take Su Su's golden core to fill the void, and yet, our master agreed to this preposterous proposal without a moment's hesitation. I couldn't help but let out a bitter, "Ha!" My hatred burned even fiercer within. These people, worse than beasts, dare call themselves a righteous sect. How dare they slander my junior sister as the clan's disgrace? The white light spoke again. "Mengshi, your talent is extraordinary. As long as you do not oppose Lin Yao, you will naturally ascend to the upper realm in the future," I said coldly. "So what if she's the daughter of fortune? You'd better make sure you can protect Lin Yao at all times, otherwise, I'll kill her every time I see her, until she's nothing but a corpse." The white light was furious. "Stubborn fool." I turned and walked away. "Remember this, that was only the first time. Now, the real show begins." 13 In the evening, I was practicing cultivation when my master sent a message summoning me to the discipline hall. I tossed aside the ever-glowing identity tags and continued my cultivation. When my breath finally settled and I felt my cultivation growing more stable, I then leisurely made my way over. As soon as he stepped through the door, the master's aura surged forth, and a stern voice echoed, "Wicked disciple, kneel." I turned a deaf ear, held my ground against his imposing presence, and walked in slowly. Quite the spectacle they've arranged. The elders from the discipline hall, those disgusting senior and junior brothers, and a number of ordinary disciples are all present. It seems Lin Yao has been badmouthing me behind my back quite a bit. The master was furious. "Mengshi, why have you injured your junior brother and sister so grievously?" Those two stood in the center, their gazes fixed on me, brimming with malice and hatred. I said calmly, "Do you have any proof?" Taken aback by my composure, the group was momentarily stunned before Lin Yao quickly regained her wits. She was the first to kneel on the ground, her eyes brimming with tears. "Master, I truly believe I have never wronged senior sister Meng." Yet, no sooner had she returned than she dug out my golden core and pinned me to a tree with her bonded sword. Such an act is beyond endurance. "I beg you, master and elders, to see that justice is done." The discipline elder frowned in contemplation, but it was the master who flew into a rage. "First, your junior sister herself has said it. What more do you have to say for yourself?" I didn't even bat an eyelid. "That's just her word against mine." "Do you have any proof?" I asked again, which clearly provoked several of them. Su Wen stepped forward. "I was there today at the back mountain when you injured our junior sister. She was covered in wounds." "How dare you deny it?" "Oh." I glanced at him. "You said she was covered in wounds. Where are they?" Hearing my words, everyone turned their gaze toward Lin Yao, who was kneeling in the center. She had fair skin, and aside from a pale complexion, there was no sign of serious injury. I had anticipated this just from those two brief encounters. I could tell Lin Yao was so spoiled by them that she couldn't handle the slightest hardship. "I went all out today. There's no way she could have made it to me with all those injuries." He probably begged his master to use the best healing medicine, but now, words fail me. "Since there's no evidence, I'll be on my way." Seeing me leave, my master must have been so enraged he actually launched an attack on me. I remained motionless, watching as he sneered. Sure enough, the very next instant, just as his spiritual energy was about to strike me, the elder of discipline intervened. 14 With the attack blocked, the sect master's face darkened. "What is the meaning of this, elder?" The elder of discipline replied calmly. "Sect master, the matter has not yet been fully investigated. Taking private action is unjust." The discipline elder was the most unyielding. A single sentence from him shattered their composure. Lin Yao stood up and pointed at him, shouting, "Mengshi injured me. What's wrong with my master seeking justice for me? If you dare block us again, you old fool." Crack! Before her words could fully land, a whip lashed across her face, leaving her utterly stunned. I stood to the side and couldn't help but snort with laughter. What a fool! Does she really think the whole world revolves around her? The discipline elder was a stickler for rules. There was no way he would tolerate being publicly berated and pointed at by a junior. Under Lin Yao's disbelieving gaze, the discipline elder said coldly, "Disciple Lin Yao, for disrespecting your elder and improper conduct, you are hereby sentenced to 30 lashes of the disciplinary whip as punishment." The master was about to speak further, but he cut him off with a wave of his hand. "Sect leader, there is no evidence regarding the matter of Lin Yao and Mengshi, so I cannot make a judgment. However, no matter how much you favor your disciples, you must not show such partiality. A disciple who disregards the rules like this truly brings shame upon our Qingyun sect." The master could only suppress his anger with great effort. Though he was the sect leader, The precept master outranked him in seniority and was known for his unyielding integrity, leaving him momentarily speechless. Lin Yao was dragged away and given 30 lashes. Hearing his beloved scream, Su Wen was the first to charge at me, ready to fight to the death, but I seized him and threw him before the elder, saying, "Elder, what should be the punishment for openly attacking a senior sister?" The elder of discipline glanced at him and said, 40 lashes of the disciplinary whip, take him away." Seeing the two of them get humiliated, Pei Chu actually pointed at me and shouted, "How could I have a heartless senior sister like you? Talk about a rescue mission gone wrong." Before he could even finish, I reached out and grabbed it. The discipline elder said coolly, "This one gets 30 lashes too." In just 3 minutes, all 3 of the master's disciples were pinned outside for punishment. I watched his face turn green with my own eyes, yet there was nothing to argue. Glancing at Wei Xing's stormy expression, I chuckled lightly. "Care to join us, senior brother? A family should always stick together." Wei Xing remained silent. His eyes dark and inscrutable. I strode away, and as I passed Lin Yao and the others, I lifted her chin under her venomous glare. I leaned in with a light chuckle, thinking of getting even. Lin Yao struggled frantically. "You wait, I'll kill you. I'll rip out your spiritual root." Before she could finish her tantrum, I slapped her across the face and said to the disciple holding the whip beside me, "Continue." "Yes, senior sister," the disciple murmured in reply. 15 After that day, Lin Yao kept a low profile for a few days and didn't cause any more trouble, but I wasn't naive enough to think she'd genuinely repented. She's a venomous snake, just waiting for the right moment to strike back. Though, with fewer chances to put her in her place, I felt a twinge of regret for a couple of seconds before getting back to my cultivation. Not long after returning to the sect, I broke through once more and have now reached the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm. If nothing unexpected happens, Lin Yao's patience is about to reach its limit. The opportunity has finally arrived. That day, I deliberately and openly left the sect. No sooner had I stepped out than Lin Yao received the news. I circled back via the trail on the back mountain, quietly waiting for the prey to take the bait. Lin Yao stood beside a masked figure, with Su Wen and Pei Chu following behind. "Are you sure sniffing this stuff will make someone go crazy?" "Of course, this is a secret elixir from the demon clan. Colorless and tasteless, I wouldn't have pulled it out so easily if you hadn't begged me so persistently." Lin Yao said excitedly, "What are we waiting for? Hurry and hide the stuff somewhere safe. I promise you, once this is done, Mengxi's spiritual root will be mine, and his body will be yours." I raised an eyebrow. "If you want my spiritual root, you'll have to survive long enough to take it." I glanced at the 2 people behind me. Su Wen, needless to say, harbors a deep-seated hatred for me. Pei Chu, however, shows a conflicted expression. After only a moment's hesitation, he said softly, "Senior sister really went too far this time, hurting junior sister like that. She had it coming." With those words, the last trace of hesitation in my heart melted away. He was right, so I decided to personally choose their manner of death. It's what they deserved. After the others had left, I didn't rush to reveal myself, but simply waited in silence. A quarter of an hour later, a figure in pale moonlight stepped into my room. "My senior brother, Wei Xing." He cautiously scanned his surroundings. My cultivation level was far beyond his, so he knew nothing. Standing only on my windowsill with a shadowed, unreadable expression, after a long pause, as if finally making up his mind, he quickly slipped something into my tea. Wei Xing seemed to be consoling himself. "Mengxi, don't blame your senior brother for being heartless, blame your own talent for being too exceptional. After all my years of hard cultivation, how is it that you just casually went down the mountain for a bit and managed to break through?" "It doesn't matter. What's so special about reaching the cultivation of spirit? As long as you're dead, the title of the sect's greatest prodigy will belong to me alone." He muttered a few words, but didn't dare to linger, and soon left. I finally dispelled the concealment spell and stepped out. I glanced at the secret elixir Lin Yao and the others had forced on me, the one that could drive me to chi deviation, then looked at the tea my dear senior brother had so thoughtfully spiked. A low chuckle escaped me as I took the 2 items in hand, my eyes and brow turning cold and severe. They all have to die. 16 In the days that followed, Lin Yao and the others lingered near my place, as if circling the edges of my life without ever fully stepping in. Wei Xing seemed to have returned to his usual gentle demeanor, appearing in front of me more and more often. I pretended not to know, quietly made my preparations, and simply waited. "Please step into the jar." That day arrived before we knew it. As I cultivated, my eyes suddenly turned blood red, and I let out an agonized scream in the room. Lin Yao was overjoyed and quickly rallied a large group of people, marching in full force toward my courtyard, but just as she reached the door, she ran headlong into the barrier I had set up in advance. "Ah!" Lin Yao cried out in pain and shot a venomous glare in my direction. "Damn it," she cursed. The others grew uneasy. "Junior sister Lin Yao, you said the senior sister has gone berserk from cultivation. Deviation, but with the barrier up now, there's no way for us to get in. Useless, the lot of you," Lin Yao snapped in frustration. "Can't even handle such a simple task." The man who had been scolded looked furious, but, mindful of Lin Yao's status, dared not speak up. He merely pressed his lips together and retreated. Lin Yao's eyes darted for a moment, then she whispered a few words, instructing them to go fetch the master and the abbot of discipline. "That old fossil is always preaching about his impartiality, isn't he? I can't wait to see the look on his face when he finds out Mangshi has succumbed to demonic cultivation." A flicker of vindictive pleasure crossed Lin Yao's face. The sect master and the discipline elder arrived swiftly. Unfortunately, by the time they arrived, disciples were already lying unconscious all over the ground and I was gripping Lin Yao's neck with deadly force, my face twisted with murderous intent. It happened so suddenly that Lin Yao never expected me to suddenly turn on her. She struggled a few times, gasping for breath, terrified she might actually die by my hand. Tears streamed down her face as she saw the figure approaching. "Master, please save me." My master was heartbroken, gathering his spiritual energy as if to strike me. "Wretched disciple, stop this at once." I shielded myself with Lin Yao's body, watching with satisfaction as her own master struck her down, leaving her half dead. It goes without saying that he really meant to kill with that blow. What a shame. It wasn't me who got hurt, but his precious apprentice. "Mangshi, you're asking for death." The master's fury burned like a raging fire, each move delivered without mercy. I lifted Lin Yao's limp body, thought for a moment, and still found it insufficient. Reaching down, he grabbed Su Wen, who lay on the ground like a dead dog, and just after taking a few blasts of spiritual energy, both of them spat out blood in great gulps. The master was both shocked and furious, yet dared not press the attack. He just stared at me coldly. "What is it you're trying to do?" Before I could answer, Lin Yao cried out, "Master, she's lost control of her cultivation and wants to silence us. You must kill her." "What?" The master and the precept elder fixed their gaze on me, sensing that something was indeed off with my state. Even the preceptor of discipline furrowed his brow. "Mangshi, explain what's going on." 17, I said offhandedly. "It's just a breakthrough, that's all." With all this fuss, anyone would think I was dying. "Breakthrough?" My master cut me off. "Impossible. It hasn't been long since your last breakthrough." He didn't believe it, and his spiritual awareness swept toward me, trying to probe my cultivation. To his disbelief, he couldn't even discern my cultivation level for a moment. Surprised, I flashed him a smile. "Don't worry, you'll find out soon enough." No sooner had the words left my mouth than I hoisted Lin Yao into the air, soaring upward to look down upon the bewildered and uncertain faces below. "Everyone, prepare yourselves for my grand gift." It was only then that everyone noticed the heavy clouds that had gathered above my head. Boom, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck without warning. I withstood it calmly, but the Lin Yao in my arms wasn't so fortunate. She was charred black all over, staring at me in stunned disbelief. "No, that's impossible. You're not suffering from chi deviation, right?" I said softly. "A pity. I'm undergoing my heavenly tribulation." Lin Yao's pupils contracted, her gaze fixed on me, brimming with terror. Another bolt of heavenly lightning crashed down. With my hands slightly spread, I tilted my head back and chuckled softly. "The child of fortune, is it? Let's see if this divine thunder can strike you dead." Lin Yao didn't hear it, for she was thrashing about like a madwoman at that moment, her piercing screams grating the air. Those caught within the lightning's range had no chance of escape. Aside from the discipline elder and the ordinary disciples I had pushed out with spiritual energy beforehand, not a single soul managed to get away. I didn't silence her cries, but instead said with grim satisfaction, "Back then, when you extracted my junior sister's elixir core, she must have suffered just as much, didn't she?" "You're insane." Lin Yao finally broke down. "You're completely mad." I just felt the heavenly thunder refining my body, while coolly watching her. By the end, Lin Yao had already fallen unconscious, and I looked up, my eyes fixed on the final bolt of heavenly tribulation. "We're about to succeed. Once I weather this heavenly tribulation, I shall stand alone as the sole cultivator in the tribulation transcendence realm. Even if I can't kill Lin Yao, I have 100 ways to torment her. Death is not the most terrifying fate, a life worse than death is the true torment, and none of the masterminds, including my own master, will escape retribution. The final bolt of heavenly lightning, as thick as a forearm and tinged with violet black, finally crashed down with a deafening roar. A flash of white light filled my vision, my consciousness plummeted, and I was once again pulled into another realm. Ugh, what a hassle. Growing impatient, I replied coldly, what now? I didn't kill your so-called fortunate maiden. What else do you have to say after summoning me here? After a long pause, a faint sound broke the silence, different from the one before it. Declared itself the true cosmic order of this world. It was ambushed by an alien entity and trapped within this realm. The entity sought to slowly devour its power, create a so-called daughter of fortune, and disrupt the natural order of the heavens. Over time, it grew weaker and weaker. If this continues, it fears it will truly fade from existence. The only way to break this deadlock is for a cultivator to reach the tribulation transcendence stage. Only then can it harness the power of the heavenly tribulation lightning to escape. Yet, the cultivation world has not seen a single mighty figure reach the tribulation transcendence stage in over a century. I never expected that by forcing my way through, I inadvertently helped it break free from its shackles. The faint voice seemed to gradually regain its strength, saying, Mengshi, I have now removed its restrictions on you. In exchange for your help, you may handle the remaining matters as you see fit. 18. When I opened my eyes, I found myself surrounded by ruins, with everyone staring at me in terror. Be big sister, I didn't reply, lowering my gaze to Lin Yao, who lay unconscious, her life hanging in the balance. TSK, you thought passing out would get you off the hook. I slowly opened my hand, and a thread of spiritual energy slipped into her wrist. Oh, Lin Yao let out a piercing scream, the pain so intense she wanted to writhe on the ground. Another surge of spiritual energy, and I severed the tendons in her other hand as well. I flung her to the ground like trash, watching her writhe in the dirt like a maggot, a picture of utter madness. Ah, how pitiful. I stepped over the scattered rubble, closing the distance between us with deliberate, measured steps. To my surprise, Lin Yao suddenly sprang up. Her arms hung limp at her sides as she desperately scrambled towards our master. A sharp whistling sound tore through the air. A blade pierced through her left leg, slamming her hard onto the ground. Jagged stones scraped across the face she was so proud of. Lin Yao lay crumpled on the ground, her face streaked with tears. Please, let me go, she begged. I raised my foot and slowly brought it down to crush her wrist. Tell me, I said, my voice deliberate and cold, did my junior sister beg you the same way? Did you ever let her go? Hearing my words, Lin Yao finally understood that I would never let her go. She burst into laughter. Yeah, she was crying so hard back then, just as miserable as I was, but didn't my master still carve out her elixir and give it to me? Angry. Good, you should be. Her tone shifted. Go ahead and kill me. At least your precious junior sister will be keeping me company in death. Even as a ghost, I won't let her be. I laughed as well. What a pity, my junior sister has already passed on peacefully to her next life, and you won't be dying today. Lin Yao would never know that the heavenly Tao had already guided Susu's soul to its reincarnation. In this life, my junior sister will walk a smooth path in her immortal cultivation, blessed with joy and free from sorrow. I lifted her chin with the tip of my sword and sneered, I'll keep you clinging to your last breath, severing one of your meridians each day, until my junior sister returns to the azure cloud sect. Oh, that's right, didn't you want a golden core? I suddenly remembered, what if I dig out our master's core and give it to you, only to carve it out again with my own hands the day Susu returns? Wouldn't that be amusing? Lin Yao's pupils contracted, her gaze so venomous it seemed she wished to devour me. My master, whom I had been forcing to kneel on the ground by suppressing him with my cultivation, was on the verge of madness. How dare you? I am your master. The other disheveled disciples also wished for my death, cursing me with the vilest words. I simply smiled, unfazed. Why wouldn't I dare? This is all what you owe her. Oh, right, I tilted my head. You've just reminded me, besides Lin Yao, I still have a score to settle with the rest of you. The newly repaired frost blade scraped across the ground with a grating screech. Now, let's see, who's next? No sooner had I spoken than my master suddenly erupted into motion, gathering all his spiritual energy to forcibly break free from his restraints and lunge toward me. I was taken aback. Is this a self-destruct? 19. I took a step back, and a silent barrier rose before me. Just as he was on the verge of success, I effortlessly shattered his dantian, suppressing the raging spiritual energy within. This is impossible. How can this be? The master fell to the ground in a wretched heap. Mengshi, you have harmed your master and fellow disciples, tarnishing the righteous reputation of our Qingyun sect. From this day forth, you will find no place among the righteous path. I chuckled softly, grabbing a fistful of his hair. Righteous sex, you don't deserve the name. I slammed my master's head hard against the ground, then brushed the dust from my hands. I am now the most powerful cultivator in this realm, master. Do you really think anyone would dare to challenge me? The man, sprawled on the ground in dishevelment, fell silent for a moment, then suddenly burst into wild laughter. I averted my gaze, bored, and went mad again. Then, no matter how Wei Xing and Su Wen pleaded or raged, I impassively severed their meridians and shattered their dantians. I watched them grovel on the ground like beaten dogs, seething with hatred but utterly powerless. When I stood before Pei Chu, the young man's eyelashes fluttered slightly as he called out softly, "Senior sister." I glanced at him and said nothing. I used to have a soft spot for this little junior brother of mine, who was always getting into mischief with Susu. However, the world has changed, and the human heart is inscrutable. Seeing that I didn't respond, Pei Chu continued on his own. You might not believe it, but it just hit me. Everything before felt like a long, hazy dream. I don't know why I lost my composure the moment I saw Lin Yao, nor do I understand why I treated senior sister that way in this situation. I truly regret it. With a sudden strike, he shattered his own heart meridian. Blood welled forth, yet his gaze held a desperate hope. I'll do it myself. I won't dirty your hands, senior sister. I only hope that you and little senior sister can forgive me. No, I cut him off. You owe me nothing, and I am not the one you should be begging for forgiveness. Pei Chu, you can go die now. I turned and walked away, not looking back at the boy whose eyes were slowly dimming behind me. I had these dead and broken men taken away, telling the guards to keep a close watch, just keep them barely alive. I patted the golden elixir spinning in my palm, then finally exhaled a heavy breath. Come on, let me take you to plant a peach blossom tree. When you return someday, I imagine you'll be delighted to see it. A warm, gentle ray of sunlight fell upon the golden core. In that dazed moment, it was as if I could see Susu. Her eyes curved into crescents, smiling sweetly at me. Senior sister, Story 2. After losing my leg while bravely saving Jiang Xi's younger brother from danger and getting amputated, Jiang Xi married me. At first, he said that I was beautiful even with my disability. Later on, he said that my amputated limb was disgusting, like a wriggling worm. Holding that poor female college student athlete he sponsored in his arms, he said, I will take care of Ruan Shu for the rest of her life. But I can't stand sleeping with her. I'd rather she were paralyzed than see her embarrassing herself by walking around with a prosthetic limb. He didn't know that not only did I walk around with a prosthetic limb, I would also walk far away from him, wearing a colorful and shining prosthetic limb. The wind sweeps away the clouds and the evening snow clears, the river mist fades and the willow branches sway gently. On the day I left, the world was vast, but when he begged me to turn back, he cried, as if he had lost the most important thing in his life. Brother Jiang is so considerate, he even bought me panties. Lin Linwan sent me a message. She is a poor female college student sponsored by my husband, Jiang Xi, sister-in-law. Don't be angry, Brother Jiang didn't mean anything improper, he's just sponsoring my daily necessities. A few days ago, I saw a set of antibacterial women's panties in Jiang Xi's shopping cart and thought he had bought them for me. Looking at the carefully attached picture sent by Lin Linwan, I suddenly felt an urge to vomit. It stuck in my throat, neither going up nor down, and my chest ached dully. Holding my phone, I put on my prosthetic limb and struggled to get up to go to the company to find Jiang Xi. I was filled with a surge of anger and wanted to ask him for clarification. The Jiang Xi who lifted me up from under the wheels of the car, the Jiang Xi who took great care of me. I was familiar with his office. At the door, I heard his friend Lin Hao ask, Brother Jiang, are you going to pick up girls at the bar tonight? Jiang Xi punched him. Get lost, who's as promiscuous as you single guys? I'm going home to be with my wife. My heart was comforted, and a smile involuntarily appeared on my lips. Yes, Mr. Jiang is a model husband in all aspects. Lin Hao drawled in a sarcastic tone. Sister Wan Shu really has you wrapped around her finger. She's a cripple, but I didn't expect you to value her so much. Hearing such an offensive comment about me being a cripple, I thought Jiang Xi would refute it. Unexpectedly, he suddenly let out a sigh in a listless tone. He said, I do love Ruan Shu, but I'm getting more and more reluctant to touch her amputated leg. The scar looks like a wriggling worm. I don't even want to undress her now. It's disgusting. Just seeing her go out wearing a prosthetic limb without covering it up makes me feel uncomfortable. It was as if an axe had split me in half in an instant, and I didn't even feel the pain. I tightly clenched my palm, and tears fell one by one onto the carpet. After a long while, I shook my head and smiled. I turned around and left. There was no point in even questioning him. In the evening, Jiang Xi came home on time and even brought me a bunch of fresh flowers. No matter how busy he was, he always made time to accompany me in arranging flowers and doing handicrafts, spending wonderful moments together. As a result, I had never doubted his love. Wife, he bent down and gently hugged me. I bought you beautiful flowers for arranging. He handed me the bouquet of flowers. My breath caught in my throat, and my face instantly turned red due to an allergic reaction. I took a step back and stared into his eyes. Jiang Xi, I'm allergic to lilies. The allergy could be so severe that it could lead to suffocation and shock. He froze, threw the flowers away at once, and looked at a loss. Wan Yuan, I'm sorry. My assistant bought them, and I forgot. I said indifferently, it's okay. He tried to find a topic. What did you do today? I avoided his body, stared elsewhere, and said indifferently, I want to go out and work. Why did you suddenly think of this? He was surprised. Is the money I give you not enough? I shook my head. He said, it's better to stay at home and have a good rest. It's not convenient for you to move around. Why go out and endure grievances? If it were before, I would have thought he was taking care of me, but now I felt that he thought I would embarrass him if I went out. In the evening, I took off my prosthetic limb. He hugged me and kissed me, his body stiff, deliberately or unintentionally avoiding that amputated leg. I pushed him away, looking at the stump of my leg. I have a scar-prone constitution, and the wriggling worms on the stump, like centipedes crawling, would scare anyone who saw them. As I looked at it, I suddenly felt very wronged and wanted to cry. I once had a healthy leg. I lost my leg while saving Jiang Xi's younger brother, Shadong. At that time, I was still working as a photographer. When I went to the street to take pictures and was just lifting up my camera, I suddenly saw a runaway truck rushing towards us. In front of the truck stood a little boy holding a candied hawthorn. Without thinking twice, I threw my camera away and rushed over to carry the little boy away. He dodged, but I was hit by the truck and had one of my legs crushed. It really hurt so much even now, when I think of that heart-wrenching, bone-breaking pain. My heart still trembles with pain. Jiang Xi pulled me out from under the truck and rushed all the way to the hospital. He knelt down in front of the doctor, begging to have my leg reattached. Unfortunately, it was eventually amputated. Jiang Xi's family gave me a large sum of gratitude money. Later, Jiang Xi often came to take care of me, installed the most advanced prosthetic limb for me, accompanied me during my rehabilitation, and helped me get used to the prosthetic limb. I said, your family doesn't have to feel so guilty all the time. Saving your younger brother was my instinctive reaction, and you've already given me the gratitude money. Don't come again in the future. I didn't intend to blackmail Jiang Xi's family with this. It was my own choice. Although I felt sorry about it, I had saved a child's life after all. He looked at me for a long time and smiled helplessly and indulgently. Can't I come just for you? After all this time, haven't you seen that I like you? He said he loved me for being strong, brave, and kind. He said that when he saw my smile, his mood would brighten up. He loved me deeply and gave me a grand wedding. Jiang Xi, it's been 3 years, and I always thought I was lucky. It turns out that it's just like this. Your so-called love to the core means being disgusted by my scars and thinking I'm embarrassing. Jiang Xi's younger brother, Shadong, begged me to pick him up from school and play with him. Shadong is 11 years old this year, and he's really cute. He remembers my kindness well and gives me handmade gifts every year. I put on my prosthetic limb at the gate of the affiliated primary school. Shadong jumped over affectionately and handed me the paper crane in his hand. Suddenly, his gaze turned to the gate of the university opposite. I followed his gaze and was shocked. My body stiffened instantly. Jiang Xi and Lin Linwan were hugging in front of the car. Jiang Xi stroked her hair gently with infinite tenderness. They made a handsome man and a beautiful woman, Shadong said. They look so well matched. Before I could say anything, Shadong suddenly shouted loudly, brother, sister Linwan. The two of them turned around in surprise and saw me. Lin Linwan's eyes dodged. An expression of embarrassment and shock flashed across Jiang Xi's face, which then slowly turned into anger. Why are you here? Jiang Xi walked over, looking unhappy, and barely pretending to be concerned. I was extremely disappointed. Don't you have anything to say to me about you and Lin Linwan? Linwan was bullied by her classmates, and her head was even broken. He frowned, patiently explaining, and lowered his voice. I came to check on her injury. It's not what you're thinking. Between us, a gust of wind blew, and my long dress fluttered open, revealing the empty metal prosthetic limb underneath. So scary, a little boy pointed at my leg and shouted. Jiangxi's face turned even uglier. Didn't I tell you to wear long pants when you go out, when others say things like this about you? It breaks my heart to hear it. He stepped forward and took my hand. I've been very busy recently, don't make me worry. Okay, Wan Yuan, I'll send you back. Before leaving, I saw Xiaodong throw himself into Lin Linwan's arms. He coquettishly whispered and asked her, Sister Linwan, you're so beautiful, will you be my sister-in-law? I don't like that crippled sister-in-law, she's embarrassing. Mom always forces me to make handmade gifts for her, it's so annoying. He rolled his eyes. She must have deliberately gotten close to my brother. She pretended to save me. Even if she didn't save me, I would have been fine. Who would trade one of their legs for so-called love? I clenched the paper crane in my hand. The thin piece of paper tore my heart apart. The amputated leg hurt so much. It is said that this phantom pain occurs because your nerves always think the leg is still there. It's like the brain deceiving you into always thinking that love is still there. I secretly took the backup of the driving recorder in Jiangxi's car one day 2 months ago. Jiangxi said he was on a business trip that day. However, in the video, Lin Linwan's shy voice came. Brother Jiangxi, you were drunk last night and tried to kiss me. I was willing to. Jiangxi's voice was hoarse and cold. It was just an accident. I will compensate you, Lin Linwan said with a sob. Ever since you chose to sponsor me, I've received the greatest treasure in my life, Brother Jiangxi. I'm content just to love you silently. I don't dare to compete with Sister Wan Shu. Everyone knows that she has a great favor for your whole family. Jiangxi's tone became serious. How do you know that? Lin Linwan said. She deliberately came to pick up Xiaodong and told everyone that she saved Xiaodong. Everyone knows about it. To be honest, Xiaodong secretly told me that he feels a bit ashamed, and his classmates scolded him for not being grateful. Jiangxi's voice was cold and angry. And he lowered his voice. I see, she might as well be paralyzed, she's embarrassing herself everywhere. Lin Linwan suddenly exclaimed, oh, my legs are getting tanned from running and training every day. Look, the skin at the root of my leg is a different color from the rest, Jiangxi said in a hoarse voice. Let me see. After that, they were like beasts in heat, like mandarin ducks in love on the verge of death. Lin Linwan cried. I really want to be with you, Jiangxi said. I can't divorce Wan Shu. You have to think clearly, you can't be in the open. Wan Shu is my wife, although I won't touch her. I will take care of her for the rest of my life and always treat her well. Lin Linwan sobbed, gasped, and said tenderly, I feel so sorry for you. She's trapped you for a lifetime with the favor of saving her leg. I listened numbly, pulled out the USB flash drive and clenched it in my hand, losing my consciousness. My head was buzzing. Their sounds of indulgent pleasure filled the air, making me feel nauseous. It was as if I was once again pressed under the heavy wheels of the truck, and the desperate pain was about to crush me to the point of suffocation. I'm going to be crushed to death. Who will come to save me? I stood up blankly, staggering. Why has it now become that I'm trying to reap benefits by relying on the favor I did? Why has it now become that I have ulterior motives? It was clearly Jiangxi who took the initiative to reach out to me. Why has it now become that I, the disgusting and disabled one, have trapped him for a lifetime? In my blurred vision filled with tears, my prosthetic limb tripped over a stool, and my head hit the corner of the computer desk hard. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Jiangxi rushed me to the hospital overnight. The doctor said, your husband was so worried about you that he didn't sleep all night. Jiangxi stayed by my side, his worried eyes full of bloodshot. Wife, didn't I tell you to move around less? When I saw you lying on the ground, I was so worried. The doctor came to check the extent of my concussion. Jiangxi asked in detail about how to recover and whether there would be any sequelae. Just like what he used to do, he cared for me as if I were the most precious thing in his hand. I remember when I first got the prosthetic limb, I wasn't very agile in moving. Once, I got my prosthetic limb stuck in the crack of the steps in the mall. He accompanied me waiting for the firefighters. Under the curious gazes of the crowd, we laughed out loud together. At that time, he didn't care about other people's looks at all. There was only me in his eyes. I remember our first time. He kissed my wound tenderly with heartache and shed tears as he asked, does it hurt a lot? Is it that people's hearts change easily, or are they just too good at pretending? After coming back from the hospital, I carefully examined Jiangxi's face, trying to figure out how he could be so flawless in pretending to care for me while having an intimate relationship with Lin Linwan. He noticed and asked me, what are you looking at? I said sadly, you've changed, you've gotten older. He reached out and put his arm around my shoulder, gently stroked my back, and said softly, "Who can avoid getting old? I still want to grow old with you like this." How peaceful the atmosphere was, and how sad it was. I thought we would hold hands and grow old together until we had white hair. It turns out that the heart of an old lover can change so easily, in an instant. Everything has changed beyond recognition, and there are wounds everywhere. From his driving recorder, I heard him talking on the phone with his friend. He said that the higher his position, the more he realized how formidable public opinion could be. He said that the principles he thought were unique when he was young didn't seem important after being beaten by society. Living in this world, people should follow the mainstream to some extent and not be too eccentric. He said that he had given up some useless things to achieve today's results. It turns out that I am the useless and embarrassing thing he gave up, and I am the odd one he thinks doesn't fit in. On the weekend, Jiang Ci went to work overtime again. I made a resume of my animal photography works online and sent it to some documentary companies. Coincidentally, I saw that a CCTV speech program was recruiting speakers with stories, and on a whim, I signed up. Xiaodong came to visit me with a gift. His face was red from crying, and he looked at me with tearful eyes. "Sister-in-law, I was beaten by Mom. Mom said I'm ungrateful and don't know how to be thankful. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry." He held the gift box and sobbed. "Mom said I have a bad character. I'm a man, and I came to apologize on my own, because my concussion hadn't healed yet." I didn't wear my prosthetic limb and was half lying on the bed looking at him, crying so pitifully. I waved for him to come over and said in a low voice, "It's good that you know you were wrong. I'll explain it clearly to Mom." He grinned, put the gift box on the table, and showed a sly smile. "Thank you, sister-in-law. By the way, Mom asked me to help sister-in-law with more work. Let me clean sister-in-law's prosthetic limb." After saying that, without waiting for my response, he picked up the prosthetic limb at the head of my bed and dragged it out. I just opened my mouth. "It's okay, put it down." Suddenly, the smell of lilies filled my nostrils, and I started coughing violently. Soon, I couldn't catch my breath. The gift box he brought, my breathing became heavier and heavier, my throat began to swell and itch, and Xiaodong had already dragged my prosthetic limb out of the door. I struggled to get up, dialed the emergency number on my phone, and headed towards the study where the allergy medicine was. At first, I could only hop on one leg and hold on to the wall, but the feeling of suffocation became more and more intense. My eyes went dark, and I fell to the ground. I couldn't use any strength in my body, and I couldn't stand up without the prosthetic limb. I had to get to the study and get the medicine. With blurred eyes, I gritted my teeth. I struggled to use my hands, rubbing against the stump of my leg, and crawled forward bit by bit. I was like a wriggling worm. I heard in my ears Xiaodong was laughing loudly outside the window while holding my prosthetic limb. "Hee hee. The cripple is crawling on the ground. This is so funny." Sister Linwan was right. "Without the prosthetic limb, you're just a monster revealing your true form." His laughter was so innocent, yet so harsh, and it gradually faded away. This was the child I had saved with my life. My throat was swollen, I was breathing heavily but couldn't catch my breath, my heart was twitching intermittently, and everything in front of me became blurred. I didn't know if I could still crawl to the study and get the medicine. My phone rang. I thought it was the emergency center, and I fumbled to answer it. "Ruan Yuan." It was Jiang Ci's voice. I clung to it like a lifeline and shouted hoarsely, "Jiang Ci, save me, I'm having an allergic reaction." "The allergy medicine is in the study," he said with concern. "It's in the second drawer. I can't get there." I lowered my head in despair and pleaded with my last bit of strength. "Save me," Jiang Ci said. "Is it that serious? I'm meeting a client and can't get there." "Ruan Yuan, can you get it yourself? Why can't you get it? Your allergy can't be too severe." "Brother Jiang, hurry up, I'm about to compete in the 100-meter dash." Lin Linwan's cheerful voice came from afar. "I'll go right away." Jiang Ci covered the phone and responded, then soothed me. "Be good, Ruan Yuan, you get it yourself first. This client is very important to me." But I couldn't hear anything anymore. The boundless darkness engulfed me, and my body floated lightly and fell into emptiness, as if I had entered another world. The last thing I vaguely heard in my ears was the cheering and shouting at the finish line of the 100-meter dash. At the last moment, I had no more tears to shed. Jiang Ci, my life, it was lighter than her crossing the finish line once. In the last moment before completely losing consciousness, I heard the roar of the ambulance after the spray was administered, and I received oxygen and in 4 drip. I felt much better. It was exactly the same hospital I had been to for the concussion last time. The medical staff looked at me Sympathetically, "Ma'am, it was really dangerous, you almost suffocated. Where's your husband? He was so worried about you when you had the concussion last time." I looked at my empty leg and smiled. I said, "He's dead." The ward fell silent instantly. The doctor said, "Please accept my condolences." I said, "It's okay." It was a happy funeral. My mother-in-law came to give me the prosthetic limb that Xiaodong had damaged. She apologized to me, and I smiled magnanimously. "It doesn't matter. Xiaodong is still a child." She hesitated to speak. "I heard that Jiang Xi wasn't at home. He really wasn't careful enough." I continued to smile, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. "It doesn't matter." When I left the hospital, I received a call. "We are the staff of the CCTV program People with Stories. We'd like to invite you to give an inspirational speech. Topics such as acts of courage for the public good, self-improvement despite disability, and rebirth after the breakdown of a marriage are all very profound." I said, "It's my great honor." I happily made a new colorful and glowing prosthetic limb for myself. During the day, it was brightly colored, and at night, the lights flashed. I wore shorts and the prosthetic limb, calmly returned home, and started packing my things. In the evening, Jiang Xi came home late. "Wife, why are you wearing such a showy prosthetic limb? This color is so eye-catching." He frowned as soon as he saw my colorful prosthetic limb. I just gave a faint and didn't answer. He then saw the wedding photo in my hand and for some reason looked a bit embarrassed. "Why are you taking out these old things?" I looked at myself 6 years ago, smiling so brightly. My prosthetic limb was clearly visible under the wedding dress, and at that time, Jiang Xi would even take the initiative to suggest taking funny photos of him holding my prosthetic limb. Jiang Xi was very handsome, individual, and full of charm back then, but now, he has exhausted his youthful spirit, become vulgar and selfish, like a disgusting shell. I gently and slowly stroked Jiang Xi in the wedding photo, feeling both infinite nostalgia and infinite mourning. He was already dead, rotten. He rotted away in a silent moment, and it took me a long time to smell his putrid stench. Jiang Xi's eyebrows furrowed, and he said nervously, "Wife, are you okay after the allergy today? Mom said you went to the hospital." I said, "I'm fine." He bent down and affectionately put his hand on my shoulder, trying to kiss me. I couldn't help but retch. His face changed drastically, as if it was something extremely unacceptable to him. He was only allowed to find my amputated leg disgusting, but he didn't allow me to be disgusted by his soul. "It's okay, I ate too much." I downplayed it. Lin Linwan called, and he clumsily made an excuse of working overtime and went out. Before he left, I stopped him. "Jiang Xi, we've come to this point because of our own choices, right?" I asked. He said affectionately, "Of course, Wan Yuan, you're the one I chose to spend my life with." I smiled. "We make our own choices and bear the consequences." "Jiang Xi, I've endured all the pain, and I've held on. I hope you can also bear the consequences." I had a sweet dreamless sleep that night. In the morning, I dragged a huge garbage bag and a small suitcase out of the door, turned left, and easily threw the garbage away. The weather was really nice today, with a clear blue sky. Life was so easy and so vast. The wind sweeps away the clouds and the evening snow clears. The river mist fades and the willow branches sway gently. On this ordinary morning, I boarded a plane heading north. Jiang Xi didn't get home until 6 in the evening. He wanted to explain things to Ruan Shu. Xiaodong was crying and begging him for mercy, saying that he had taken Ruan Shu's crutch out of playfulness and caused her to fall. Jiang Xi thought that children were mischievous, and it was normal. Ruan Shu wasn't the kind of narrow-minded person, and she would surely forgive Xiaodong. But when Jiang Xi got home, he found the house extremely quiet and empty. Normally, Ruan Shu had nowhere else to go and would always stay at home, arranging flowers and watching TV. Jiang Xi called out a few times but got no response. He called Ruan Shu's phone, but it showed that she was out of the service area. Jiang Xi wasn't too worried. Where could Ruan Shu go? She had a poor relationship with her parents and younger brother. After becoming disabled, she also had few friends, because going out meant that others had to take care of her. Jiang Xi had told her several times not to trouble others too much, so she stopped going out. Suddenly, Jiang Xi was stunned and felt that something was wrong. It seemed that something was missing in the house. What was it? He looked around, and this familiar house suddenly became strange. He didn't pay much attention to this home anyway. As long as he came back, Ruan Shu would always be waiting for him in some corner of the house, becoming more and more silent and dull. He had gotten used to it, and he increasingly didn't want to go home. After looking around several times, he finally realized that one of Ruan Shu's photography works that had won a national award which had always been hung on the wall, was gone. He let out a sigh of relief, and the faint unease in his chest finally dissipated. It was just a photo. He hummed a song and walked into the bathroom while continuing to call Wanshu. His hand suddenly froze. Wanshu's toothbrush and tooth cup in the bathroom were gone. It was like a wake-up call. He suddenly rushed out and opened all the cabinets in the bedroom, kitchen, and study. All the things related to her privacy were gone. He stumbled out of the door, subconsciously looked up at the small building, and then looked around. He even suspected that he had entered the wrong house. The old neighbor greeted him cheerfully. "Are you going out too?" He caught the word and raised his voice. "Did you see my wife, Wanshu, after throwing out the garbage in the morning?" She left with a small suitcase. She was smiling so happily. "I've never seen her smile like that before," the old man said in confusion. Jiang Ci suddenly took a step forward and rushed towards the garbage bin that hadn't been taken away yet. The old neighbor looked at this man in a suit in surprise. He leaned over the garbage bin and rummaged through it, frantically pulling out those letters, gifts, daily necessities, one by one. With each item he took out, his heart became more panicked. He didn't even know what he was panicking about. No, where could she go? No, she was just a disabled woman he had grown tired of in the marriage. He pulled out one piece of garbage after another, the wooden keychain he made with his own hands when he confessed his love to Wanshu in the first year of her disability. He gave her a self-help vehicle for the disabled and watched her eyes light up with surprise with a smile. Her smile was as strong and bright as a gem. He swore to bring her all the stars in the sky. The photo album he gave her when he proposed in the second year of her disability. He recorded every moment of her rehabilitation training. She was wobbly wearing the prosthetic limb. She played hopscotch wearing the prosthetic limb. She raced with him wearing the prosthetic limb, and they laughed and laughed as they looked at each other in the wind. When the company was in its most difficult times, he was forced to drink so much that he had a gastric hemorrhage. Wanshu supported herself with the prosthetic limb and tried to help him, who was lying drunk on the street. Back home, after they got back, there were bruises all over the joint of her prosthetic limb. At that time, he couldn't see Wanshu's disability at all. All he could see in his eyes was her optimism, her strength, her cuteness, and her vitality. But gradually, Wanshu lost her vitality. He increasingly resisted her, and all he could see in his eyes was her disability. The more he looked, the more disgusted he felt. The more Jiang Ci rummaged, the more flustered he became. His hand was cut on the broken glass in the garbage bin, and there was blood everywhere, but he didn't even notice. Suddenly, he saw something and trembled violently all over, as if he had received the most unbelievable blow in his life. He saw that from their wedding photo, a crumpled printed paper fell out. He opened it and saw the screenshot from the driving recorder. Lin Linwan was smiling playfully and making a blocking gesture in front of the car. He picked it up with his blood-stained hand, as if he didn't recognize Lin Linwan anymore. Jiang Ci used all his connections to look for Wanshu, but he really didn't expect to see her so soon. "Jiang Ci, hurry up and watch TV, Wanshu is on TV." His mother called him. He fumbled to turn on that live broadcast program. On the program, Wanshu was wearing a colorful prosthetic limb, a dress with an artistic temperament, and a half mask. Her smile was so bright that it seemed to shine. She held the microphone, her gaze calm and composed. "I want to tell my story." She told about the first half of her life, how her parents favored sons over daughters, how she struggled to study, how she learned photography, and how she won a national photography award driven by her dream. She told how she bravely saved a child out of a sense of justice, how she lost a leg, and how she got married. She told how the child she saved with her life, instigated by the mistress, almost killed her. She told how she withered away in that house during the marriage. She told how her husband found her prosthetic limb disgusting and found a beautiful mistress who was healthy and studied sports. She told how that mistress instigated the child to take pleasure in her disability, and her husband was accompanying the mistress to cross the finish line of the sprint at that time. Finally, she smiled and said, "I had originally printed out the photos and harassing messages of the mistress and planned to publicly launch a cyberbully against them regardless of the rules of the program group, but now I've given up." She waved her hand and bid farewell to the past with a smile. "They're not worth it. I'm going to embrace a new life without them." The live broadcast comments were filled with messages like, "Is this something a person can do? Pause the live broadcast, I'm going to beat them up. This naughty kid is just a born bad seed and doesn't deserve to be saved at all. Woo-woo, sister is so kind, this man doesn't deserve her at all. Sister, look at me." Jiang Ci listened numbly, feeling as if his heart had been hollowed out. He didn't know whether he was angry or ashamed, only that it hurt terribly. I was deceived, he told himself over and over again. He took out his phone to look for Lin Linwan. His voice was as cold as ice, like facing an enemy. What did you do to Wan Shu behind my back? After leaving the CCTV program group, I joined a team filming an African animal documentary. When the leader of the film crew saw my colorful prosthetic limb, he blurted out, "Cool," I said embarrassedly and promised, "I won't cause you any trouble. If I do cause trouble, you can deduct it from my salary." The leader winked at me. "Your very existence is a beautiful scenery line." Holding the camera again, I felt excited and nervous inside. Fortunately, I adapted quickly. My camera captured those agile animals and recorded their vitality. We were all growing tenaciously. My divorce lawyer told me about Jiang Xi's recent situation. He said that Jiang Xi refused to sign the divorce agreement and kept insisting on seeing me. I took him out of the blacklist and answered his video call. I thought I would be filled with resentment, but I was actually extremely calm. Jiang Xi looked at me with red eyes. His voice choked up. "Wife, don't be angry anymore. I really didn't know your allergy was so serious that day. I've completely broken up with Lin Linwan, and I've even demanded back the sponsorship I gave her over the years. Come back, and I'll make her kneel down and apologize to you." I couldn't help but laugh. "Jiang Xi, don't shift the blame onto others," I said indifferently. His face turned pale, and he said, "After your speech on TV, many insiders dug out our identities. Even Xiaodong was scolded at school for being ungrateful. We've been severely cyberbullied." I said, "You deserve it." He froze, and his voice became even more choked. "I know, wife, I was just confused. I was drunk that night and wasn't in my right mind. I never thought of divorcing you," I said seriously. "Jiang Xi, if you don't agree to the divorce, I'll disclose my identity, then more people will dig into you, and you'll become even more famous." He gritted his teeth. "Wan Shu, does it have to come to this? After we get divorced, how will you, a disabled person, live in the future? At least I know I was wrong. Give me a chance to make up for it, and I'll treat you better." I lost my patience. "I hope the next time we meet will be at the Civil Affairs Bureau." My former mother-in-law called me. She was very anxious. "Wan Shu, where have you gone? Jiang Xi is really worried about you. I've given Xiaodong a good lesson. Please give them a chance to admit their mistakes. After all, we will always be a family." Although I wore a mask on the program, it was easy for insiders to figure out who I was. Xiaodong was isolated at school, and many children thought he was scary and a bad seed. Xiaodong cried and apologized to me, saying that Lin Linwan had deceived him, claiming that lilies would only cause me a mild allergic reaction, and taking away my prosthetic limb was just to teach me a lesson. Sister-in-law, that Lin Linwan always lured me with candies. She said that you were telling everyone that I was ungrateful after you saved me, which made me feel ashamed, and the other children didn't want to play with me, but the security guard uncle said that it was clearly her who was spreading those rumors everywhere. She gave me the lilies and said it would be okay. I'm sorry," my mother-in-law said. "Jiang Xi reported the case to avenge you, but Lin Linwan shifted all the blame onto Xiaodong. This child knows he was wrong now." However, I turned my head away and no longer looked at the child I had saved with my life. I didn't care how sincere his apology was. I still didn't regret it. I just saved the wrong person. They didn't deserve it. My former mother-in-law said, "Ever since you left, Jiang Xi has been in a trance every day. He tortured Lin Linwan like a madman, forcing her to return the money and publicly revealing the evidence of her cheating in the competition. Lin Linwan almost stabbed him to death. Jiang Xi almost got into a car accident the day before yesterday. How could you bear to ignore all these years of our relationship?" I smiled and said, "It seems that your family's values are really bad. The eldest son cheats, and the younger son is a bad seed." She was stunned. I said, "With such people in your family, it might be that the Jiang family has bad genes. You're really used to making excuses for these useless people after all these years." Her face turned extremely bad. The next time I heard news about Jiang Xi was when he agreed to go through the divorce procedures at the gate of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Jiang Xi was waiting for me with his hair in a mess. I remembered that when I was with him, I always took care of his clothes and styling. I liked it when he went out looking decent and neat. "Wan Shu, my mom is getting a divorce from my dad. She said that our family has bad genes, and after enduring it for so many years, she suddenly couldn't take it anymore." He looked at me with red eyes. Why do you have to be so ruthless? It was just a moment of weakness. You've always been the one in my heart. I didn't let another woman into my heart. It was just a physical relationship. is it really that unforgivable? I looked at his haggard face, after a long while. I suddenly said, I remember we discussed this topic before. He seemed to have forgotten and frowned as he thought about it. It was really ridiculous. Suddenly, his body stiffened. Yuan Shu, what I said that time was just out of anger. I didn't mean it. I was just too tired and wanted to relax a bit, I said. Do you remember now, when we were together? There was a teacher in the industry whom I respected very much and who was extremely talented, but he had an affair. Jiang Xi and I discussed how kind and affectionate this teacher had been to his wife in the past, and how they had gone through thick and thin together, but it couldn't withstand the beauty of a pretty female student. The young and high-spirited Jiang Xi looked at me and said, what's the use of being good to your wife in the past? He has no self-control. A man who can't control his own desires has a rotten soul, he said firmly. I don't want to become such a hypocritical old thing. He's completely a low-class person. If I were to become like that, I would despise and hate myself. He patted my head. If I were to become like that, I would not only be sorry to you but also to myself. That would mean that a person is completely dead inside. I looked at Jiang Xi quietly. His lips moved a couple of times. Then he grabbed his hair fiercely, looking like he couldn't believe it, wanting to defend himself but feeling powerless to struggle. Finally, he kicked the trash bin by the roadside hard. So, we can never go back, right? He said, panting heavily with his eyes red. I said, I won't turn back for a dead person. After getting the divorce certificate, Jiang Xi sat on the steps next to the trash bin, covering his eyes with the divorce certificate. At the gate, I heard his friend Lin Hao ask, Brother Jiang, are you going to pick up girls at the bar tonight? A few months later, I heard that Jiang Xi's company was on the verge of bankruptcy because Lin Linwan had reported it for tax evasion and tax fraud under her real name. Lin Linwan also spread their private photos everywhere in a way that was like taking them down with her. One day when I returned to the country for business, I saw a very popular local video where Lin Linwan was having a fight with him. Lin Linwan hung a banner and threw photos in front of his company. He looked extremely disheveled, thin, and slovenly, shouting swear words at Lin Linwan. He didn't care about his own dignity and quality at all. The weird eyes from others towards him was even more intense than the looks I got when they saw my amputated leg. It was really sad. Our team's animal documentary won an international award. When receiving the award, the team leader specifically asked me to receive it on behalf of the team, and the organizer also hoped that I would give a speech. After I appeared in the media several times, some people commented, it's this woman again, talking about her disability, divorce, and those trivial matters. There are so many women who have been cheated on, but she's the only one who's so high profile. I heard that she was exposed as not being clean herself. That man was probably tricked by her. Just an act of courage for the public good, and she keeps talking about it as if she's done some great deed. I listened to these voices without any ripple in my heart. I knew that my ability to stand on this stage was due to many factors related to my disability. My uniqueness and my disabled state attracted attention. To some extent, I had become a special symbol, and my disability had become a display item on the stage, facing countless scrutinizing eyes. But it didn't matter. I could bear it. I just wanted to stand on the biggest stage and tell my story over and over again, tell it again and again. I wanted to tell all the disabled people in the world that we can appear in public with confidence, show ourselves as we are, and that the strange eyes and ridicule from others are signs of their lack of good manners. I wanted to tell all the women in the world that even if I'm a disabled woman, at the bottom of men's list of ideal partners, we still have the courage to get a divorce and live a wonderful life of our own. I wanted to tell all the women in the world that when facing a marriage full of infidelity and deception, instead of pretending that everything is okay, it's better to fight back and regain control of our own lives. Even if just one woman sees me and regains a little bit of courage, everything I've done will be meaningful.